call to order. We're going to discuss accessory structures tonight because that has been a prominent source for variances. People, since zoning was instituted, have found they want more room than we had originally planned for them to build buildings. So, based on previous discussions of the board, we looked at the data of how much the variances were, meaning how many square feet over the previous variances have been. And we came to the conclusion that we would meet most needs for the citizens of Yankton County if we doubled the current square footage in R2. So the R2 right now is zoned at 2,000 square feet, and the proposal is to double the square footage to 4,000 square feet and add 2 feet to the maximum sidewall of 16 foot for the sidewall. In R2, meaning the zoning for R2, the current limit is 1,200 square feet for building size and a sidewall height of 12 feet. And we would like to increase that to 2,400 square feet maximum with a 14-foot sidewall. All right. And lastly, the zoning for R3 is currently, the building size is set at 800 square feet, and we want to increase that to 1,600 square feet with the maximum sidewall height of 12 feet for the sidewall. All right, now these increases in square footage size and sidewall size are contingent upon the buildings meeting current setback limits. All right, so because we found many times that even though a person is in an area that's zoned R3, we just had one last month. He had a 5-acre lot. He had more than enough room and his building size was just under that 1,600 foot square footage that he wanted. So, you know, we varianced it, but in the future, if this is a consistent trend where people want to keep, and we want them to keep their lawnmowers, their equipment. You know, if you have a 5-acre lot, you need a big mower. It's not going to be a little push mower. They can keep those things under lock and key and out of sight in a building and secured. You know, so I think it's a win-win for the county. As I said before, the contingency that we're asking is that the building meet all setbacks, and provided it meets the setbacks for side yard and front yard and backyard and all of those things, it fits the lot, because we have many lots that are actually bigger than what's zoned in that particular area. Then they won't need that variance if this change is accepted. So that's what we have come to so far. And then John made the suggestion that should they want something outside of these limits, that they ask for a conditional use, and then it will be considered on a case-by-case basis. You know, because it could be that they have a very big lot, or they have a specific need, or whatever, and it's a reasonable request, and no neighbors around. A lot of times this is right on the edge of ag zoning, and there's no one around, and no one cares if they have a bigger building. And it could be a special use, like sometimes one-time person came in here and they wanted a riding arena. Well, a riding arena is a very big building, you know. So, you know, that's what we've come up with thus far.
Yes, I guess what I had talked about is if we're, you know, this is a big change in the structure sizes, but I think in most of the places where the structures would be too large, they're not going to fit without a variance. So if we can kind of set a precedent or stick to that, we're not going to give a variance on these. You know, I think we're only going to be giving 4,000 square feet to somebody who's got a big lot that's stuck in their own zoning. You know, kind of the way of a few people being able to get around this or get past this if their lot is big enough. You know, I think we should take it out of the variance process and put it in a conditional use. If you want an accessory building with a larger size than what's allowed in your whatever your, whether you're an R3 or R2, you should have to get a conditional use for it instead of a variance, I think. I think it would be a lot cleaner. You'd be able to put specific conditions on it to meet whatever the situation is with the building, and then we're not opening variances back up to these things again, because if we're gonna keep variances out of that, we have to find a different way to do the few of them that aren't gonna meet that.
Then it'll be also addressed specifically that site, that building.
Correct.
For instance, example, they want a 14-foot sidewall because their fifth wheel air conditioner is 13 feet 4 inches, okay? Then they can park their fifth wheel inside the building, and maybe they make it smaller square foot, but tall enough, something, so I think I concur with you.
And I like the conditional use process because then the neighbor is still notified, and if he has concerns, he said, hey, I know about the process, okay. And in a lot of these, when we did variances, most of the times neighbors didn't, I mean, there are exceptions, but.
Most of the time, they were like, yeah, hey, great, he's a good neighbor. And
Yeah, at least I know about it, thank you, and, very rarely was there controversy unless, there are some exceptions when they were humongous variances, but those are pretty rare. Would we want to then, what about sidewall height? Would you want to
Well,
see
you
P
could
for
address
larger
it.
sidewall height, or would
Yeah, you
want-
could address it as a conditional use, let's say in Article 6. Could just simply read accessory structures over 4,000 square feet and/or with sidewall height exceeding 16 feet, and then just continue as
Right.
measured from whatever. And then that would be a conditional use, and people wouldn't be used to seeing variances on these things and realize that they're not gonna probably get a variance on anything like that. They're gonna have to go through a conditional use process. And some of these, as far as in these smaller areas, they won't even be able to make, there's a lot of in the R3 that they're not even gonna be able to make 1,600 feet work. It's just not gonna work, or you're not gonna have the setbacks from the lot lines. So the control won't be what we have said as the square footage. The control is gonna be what can you make with your setbacks.
Well, there's a reason why there's setbacks. There's usually like a utility easement, or there's a property line that's right there, and how you maintain it or access it, or that has more precedent than sometimes. I think the setback is more important than the square footage.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what we're
If you go
dealing
in a
with.
subdivision, the lots are pretty much the same size. Maybe there's a corner one that's pie-shaped or something like
Right.
that.
Right.
But I think that's more important, the setback, than it is, because that affects intersections, visibility, and
Right,
utility easement, access.
And one of the things that we kind of, I think, got straightened out early on was, we had developments that don't meet the setbacks that we have, but we always said if your development, all your houses are at 28 feet off the road instead of 30 feet, the 28 feet is acceptable for if you're adding on to your house or doing whatever. But I think with these accessory structures, they're gonna be moved back, because you're not gonna have enough room beside your house 90% of the time to put that garage up by your house. So it'll take us away from kind of continuing that too, where we don't want to on accessory structures.
Do we have to bring it up to the fact too that, like in a area where there's covenants on the properties surrounding in that development, that the covenant rules still govern over?
Well, and that is a problem, and it's a problem, it's been a problem for me, to be honest with you. And I know, when we brought this up, we talked, and Zane was here, and he said, well, you should have covenants and have that with covenants. And I said, well, that's all well and good, except the county doesn't pay any attention to
But I don't think we want
covenants.
to address covenants,
No.
because that's, the person
So-
who's developing that land,
It's a civil
these 10 lots,
matter.
these 20 lots. Part of the condition as he sold that lot was there are these covenants, and those people wanted that because of the covenants. They weren't concerned about county setbacks and all this other. Now, you look at it and they have covenants and they still want to meet, they want an accessory structure, and if it meets the standards of the covenants, it still needs to meet, it's kind of like, we don't care if your covenants say you can have it, but it still has to
it has to
meet
meet
us.
the law of the land.
Right, but we're not gonna be like the preliminary covenant of the, the building.
Well, the county can't enforce covenants.
The only
Right,
thing
that's
that would be
something
nice
else.
is if in areas where there is covenants, and for the most part, I think we'll know in areas where there is covenants that we should say, just because you get this from the county does not supersede your covenants.
Right,
So-
like covenants are still your precedent in your neighborhood, and if your covenants allow you an accessory structure, it has to fall inside the county zone.
Yeah.
Isn't that what they fell into with that house out there, that because of the height?
Yes, there's been quite a few instances where somebody, because here's what happens as a developer. You're not on site watching what everybody does, and somebody doesn't come to me and say, I want to build an accessory structure or a house. They come to the zoning administrator and say it, and they get a permit that says they can be within so far of a lot line, and it's possible that you have a covenant that says you can't be that tall, you can't be that close to a lot line. The majority of mine, and I think the, excuse me, the majority of most people's fall close in line, because that's what we tried to do when we set them, was to try and get close to what most people did as far as the 30-20-10 and some of that stuff. But, you know, there is some specialty ones like the height one he's talking about and a few others.
Right, but see, like when you get into height stuff, it's out usually by the lake, and someone
Yeah.
says restricts my view. We don't care if it restricts your view, we don't have an ordinance that says, and then, you know,
Well, then it's up to them to show up for the
Exactly.
meeting. Right.
That's
And
the good
that's
thing
why
about-
if it is a CUP, then they will be noticed and
Right,
they'll have to show up
that's the
for
good thing
meeting.
about the notice, is at least people will know, you know.
Right.
But it still becomes part of the homeowners association or the person, the developer, whatever, to catch that if they're coming in asking for a 16-foot tall sidewalk building, and their rule and their covenant is a 12-foot, then, because we have to get the monkey off our back on that thing.
Yeah, I
when
don't-
it comes to,
I don't have a clean answer for it either. I mean, it would be
well, I
nice
think it's
if,
pretty easy, we don't enforce covenants.
yeah.
No,
You
we
know,
don't.
if you're in that subdivision and you come in and you get a conditional use permit, it's not our issue. It's like your covenant group. You know, we had that one, Marina Del Rey, I think it was.
Yep.
There was like, they were the exact same words, but except they applied to these 11 addresses and they applied to these 9 addresses. And everybody knew where this guy was at, like, yeah, build a building, who cares, whatever. And these people are like, you can't, it's not in our covenants. These covenants are different than these. No, they're the same words. No, this had these 9 house numbers and these had these 12. They're different. It was different, you know, and the people in that zone, they're all like, yeah, he's a great neighbor, build the building. So the covenants have to be the people, the civil side, the people in that area.
And I think that was a case where the citizens in that area are the ones that came in and brought the awareness of the covenants to everybody, I think.
Yeah, but the people where the building was getting
Yeah.
built, they're all like, yeah, that's great, it's cool,
Yeah.
build it. But it was the people like across the street said, that violates our covenants. Yeah, those covenants didn't cover this building.
Well, it's kind of like any local municipality, you start there with the rules and they build up to the state level, right, and the federal level. I mean, you just drill down. I mean, so everybody's gotta be aware. You can, might be a state rule, but the county rule is different, or the local municipality has got rules on top of that, so it's no different than any of that, so we.
And, you know, and one thing, you guys probably aren't aware of it, and I don't know how the vote is gonna go tomorrow, but we're looking at possibly adopting some new software for the planning and zoning. And our hope is it's a compatible system with Beacon, and we're gonna get a presentation tomorrow. And the hope is that somebody could do a building permit, like a contractor could be at home and do a building permit, print out the building permit at home, pay for it at home, and never even come in the building for the 99% of the easy ones.
Stuff that's just allowed.
Yeah, and at the same time, then we have a digital record of it, no more filing cabinet. So our hope is that this process moves smoother and there's fewer variances and fewer conditional use permits, and somebody could go in and get a building permit simpler in the long term.
On that process then, does just, you know, say I go in and I fill out my forms and I get a building permit today, does the zoning administrator just take a look at it tomorrow, and then if there's, because there will be times when
Yeah.
people do things wrong, you know?
Yeah, you know,
would
we're
think
gonna get a
within 24 to
presentation.
48 hours, you'd have a
Yeah.
pretty good idea that somebody would just take a quick look at it and say,
Yeah.
you know, well, this guy was incorrect on what he said here or something.
Yeah, we're going to get the presentation tomorrow. And
But it keeps all the people from sitting in line up in the office.
Yeah.
you know, the same people who, you know, somebody like you or guy who's doing a bunch of decks, if he does, I don't know how many, 50, 60 permits each year, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
If we could keep people like,
That
that from having the 10 people in line, I think that would be a good thing in the
You
long
have to,
run.
you have to have a way to know whether you were approved or not approved. I mean, you can't just
Sure.
say, oh, well, I applied, but, I
Yeah.
did my stuff online, and then, you have to have that final approved
Yeah.
stamp
Yeah.
somewhere along the line.
I think, we'll get the full presentation
Yeah.
tomorrow, but,
So going back to this accessory deal, now, what happens when we raise these numbers and we have a lot and it doesn't fit
Then they
because
have,
of the gully and because of the,
Then
this
it's
and the
gotta
other
meet the
thing?
setbacks.
I mean, if it fits the deal and you got an acre and it fits but you've gotta move it up closer to the road, do we do conditional use? Do we do variance? What do we do
we
there?
do a conditional use.
I would think you do a conditional use.
If
That's
it
what we're
doesn't
trying to
fit-
get away
If it
with.
doesn't fit into the
You're saying
setbacks.
just the
yep,
setbacks.
then, because that way you're notifying,
Mhm.
Yep,
I think they, very few of the ones that I recall were minimum lot requirement setbacks, weren't they mostly for maximum accessory structure size? I think a
Most of them were
small,
for size.
small
I'm just,
amount.
but it happens, I
Right,
mean,
it
they
does.
they
I
have to
think you're
move it
never
up
gonna get away.
in front of the
you're-
house
yeah.
or, well, no, I
Yeah.
think you always have to have that, especially
Yeah.
in the lake area, it's gonna happen.
But I agree,
There's
that's
no way
a,
to fit,
that's a
but,
question of whether it is a variance or a conditional
Yeah,
use when you're
yeah.
talking about just the setback, strictly the setback. In other words, you're not asking for a higher sidewall and you're not asking for a larger building,
mhm.
you're just asking for the setback.
Wouldn't
Well, we ran into that before too, where the guys were building the storage units,
Mhm.
and he had maxed out his space, but he had enough room to stick one up if he put it at the back of his unit right on his property line.
Mhm.
And he was really upset that we didn't give him that.
Yeah, I remember that one. He's still
Yeah,
upset.
but again, those setbacks were set up for a reason.
right, on the property line, that's a bit excessive, but, yeah.
Well, because who
Buy
gets
the
there
lot
first?
next door
If the neighbor joining wanted to put a building on his property line, they just share that. So you can't
Good.
put anything on the line because
Yeah.
it's mutual ownership.
Well, Lorraine was actually gonna run off his building onto
Not
the
to the other
property.
way
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
That's always nice.
This contractor had to be trespassing to put the tin on the back of it.
Right, that's right.
That's the way my garage is, I'm on my neighbor's property if I wanna
Yeah.
paint it. There's no
He'll charge you rent for the time.
Right.
I guess I would think with,
If I don't put too much paint on, it'll be hers.
we may, I guess my opinion, and maybe I'm off base here, is it'd probably still be a variance if you're gonna get closer to, the minimum lot requirement. You're still not following that, and those are the types of things we wanna maybe get away from.
You're talking about the setback, though, your
For the
minimum lot
setbacks.
setback.
Yeah, that's kind, if I, in Article 6 on page 55, or, what is it, 57, what do we got, 30 feet?
Yeah, all the residential should be 30, 20, 10. We were consistent with that.
And I think it's important to keep to those as much as possible, and if a guy, it's supposed to be 30 and he has only 20, then maybe you don't build as big of a shed or something, because this, just because
Well-
you can get 4,000 square foot doesn't mean it will fit in your lot.
Yeah, so if you ask for a variance to move it close to the road, you say, okay, we might give you a variance, but your building's only gonna be half the size. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean,
Those are
I
kind
think
of
we'd
the
have to take
gives and
those
takes.
on a case-by-case basis, because you get those really funny lots.
Yeah.
Or you get those places out in, somewhere where the house was built too close anyway, but we don't really see a lot of those, I don't.
We have a few, and like I said before, we had always gone to where, whatever's kind of like in the development. In other words, if your house is 28 instead of 30 off the road and you want to add on to your house, if you had to follow the ordinance exactly, you'd have to variance the house that's already built, and that doesn't make any sense, because there's tons of stuff, both in the residential stuff and in the ag stuff, that doesn't meet the setbacks. So we're saying, as long as you're not making it worse, in other words, you can't add on and get closer to the road,
Yeah.
but if you're continuing your line, whether it's the front line, the sideline, or whatever, we kind of wanted to set a precedence of that's what you're allowed to do, is to stick within the setbacks that your property has, and not try and make your nonconformance, if you will, any worse.
Yeah.
Not move closer to the line.
Yeah,
You know,
that was the way we had, really kind of streamlined that where, the big benefit of that is because the zoning administrator then knows that when people come in, not to ask for 2 foot closer, say, they're not gonna give you 2 foot closer.
Right.
But if you stay with your house, whether front, side, whatever, they have a precedence of this is what we allow everybody to do equally, all through all the districts, is whatever you're set at now, you can continue that, you can add on to your structure and continue that, but you can't go closer or make it worse.
Yeah. You might have to add it to the back or the other sides.
Yeah.
You can't add it to the side that's already not.
You can't just make it worse because it's easier for you. You have to find a way to try and at least continue the nonconformance you have.
We just had one of those where a guy was gonna add on, like if you were looking from his house out to the front, he wanted to add on to the left, but he was gonna get within like 5 or 7 feet of the left property line. And it was like, no, you can't do that. But he then built his building to the right of the house. I can't remember, it was somewhere west of town, like Herman's Loop or somewhere.
yeah, that's where it was, yeah.
And it was like,
He
you
had that
can't build
really
here, but
funny
you can
lot,
build
yeah.
over here, because he had a big enough yard to fit it in.
Yeah.
And I think that was like good judgment.
Well, a lot of times they don't wanna add on to their driveway or do some more dirt work or whatever, and it's just like, well, you're just gonna have to. That's the cost of putting up a building. You can't always do it the cheapest way and fit it right beside this
Get a
driveway.
good deal on this lot, cause it's messed up.
You know,
Well, I just think at some point in the future, probably not too distant, we're gonna have a new zoning administrator, and, it would be nice to kind of have a precedent set that guy can understand, or gal, whatever it is, can understand that this is the way we've been doing it, even though it's not really spelled out that way in the ordinance,
But it should be.
Yeah, it could and should be, but I don't know that we'll get there,
So I haven't re-looked at this, but I just thought of something like Connex boxes. They're 20 foot, 30 foot, or 40 foot. And you can buy them in like Vermillion, right, or Elk Point or one of them, and they bring them in. They're not usually permanently attached to like a foundation. So, and I thought at one time we had said that Connex boxes weren't allowed and semi-trailers weren't allowed as storage entities.
Yeah, it's in there.
It's in here
It's in
somewhere
here.
that
Yeah.
you
It's in
can't
here, it's
have.
in the
We had a
definition of
huge fight with
accessory
that.
structure.
I think you can have them in ag.
You can have them in ag.
In ag, but not, yeah.
We had a big fight actually on
But not
Chris
in
Road
residential.
out there, and the county ended up putting a building over one, and over a trailer.
Yeah, that's in the definition of accessory
and that's
structure,
kinda how
so
some
they're
of
not
that
allowed
got-
except in.
got in there that you couldn't
So
use.
what happens if we go out around the county, I know there's Connex boxes that are out there that never got a permit, then what happens to that?
If they're in ag, I don't know if they're not
They're in
allowed.
ag, it's fine.
Where,
They're just
where-
talking about residential districts.
Where does that say, where does it say, did you? say
Yeah,
that?
it's in the definition of accessory structure, I was just looking at it. Where was it?
Either there or in,
There it is,
They're-
accessory building, excuse me.
what are you seeing them used for, permanent storage or long-term, or just short-term storage? Permanent storage. It would, to me, it'd be in the same boat as a,
Says shipping credit.
If you look on page
Trailer or-
68, it says something about it shall be unlawful for any person to use a
Is that under
van,
mobile?
shipping crate.
On page 2 of the definitions of
It says,
accessory
yeah,
structure.
it's on page 1, in the one I have,
Oh, it's on
definition, under accessory building.
accessory building.
Yep.
There's one after that, accessory use or structure.
Oh, okay,
Same thing.
all right.
Truck, body, semi-trailer, rail car, shipping crate, or any other vehicle no longer used.
What page are you on?
Definitions,
page 2 and
page one
definitions.
or two, pick.
Page 2,
Like Christie said, it's under accessory building. And then on the accessory structure, is it similar?
I mean, if they're out there, that's gonna be up to our new zoning administrator to get them gone. They have to be, they can't have.
Depending on
Not
how
allowed.
long some of them,
Yeah,
some of
because
those,
grandfathered in.
I was just at, citing a house for Habitat for Humanity, there's one that looks like it's been there for 50 years,
Oh,
yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
that's on a national street, so.
anyway, that's something to look at too, because if we go out there and tell someone they gotta get rid of it.
That's probably where it'd show up on Change Finder or something like that, I would imagine.
Kind of depends on where it's,
Yeah.
if they're sitting behind the house, in the
Right,
setback, you know.
I've seen a couple recently, but I honestly couldn't tell you.
I mean,
You
if
know, it's like
someone
you see it all
puts
the
one.
time, but you don't really know where you.
Mhm, right. Kind of one of those things where, yeah, we can go out looking for trouble. But, I mean, if the neighbors are
The
complaining
neighbors
about
were
it, then they
complaining
have,
about
then they have recourse.
It's like every other code
You know,
enforcement
if it's sitting
issue.
behind your house and nobody cares, I certainly don't.
Right.
It's like every other code enforcement issue.
You know-
If the code enforcement officer or what, the zoning administrator doesn't take around and see it and
Yeah.
nobody complains,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna go out looking in people's backyards.
Keep your neighbors
got better
happy.
things to do.
Keep your neighbors happy.
Yeah. I seriously doubt there's all that many people in our county that want to have one of those things sitting in their backyard. It's not the most attractive thing.
Man's junk, another man's trash.
Another place to put stuff.
Another man's trash.
Yeah, better out of sight than sitting out in the open, I guess.
Well, there's one section that's been a problem since the very, very beginning, and that's section 207. 207 says, no yard, lot, or parcel existing at the time of passage of this ordinance shall be reduced in dimensions or area below the minimum requirements set forth herein. That thing been broken a million times, because you could never do anything, hardly at all, if you met 207 the way it's written.
Well, like how that's written, that would affect one of the people at last meeting. because, you know,
Absolutely.
Well, what was the purpose of it initially? I mean, what was the argument?
Well, the argument is the guy that wrote it liked it.
Well, isn't that, I mean,
It technically says you can't variance or do anything smaller than what's allowed. And, you know, basically you can't hardly do anything if you
to an
follow-
existing parcel, when this was put in place.
Yeah, but everything was an existing parcel or part of an existing parcel. In other words, there was no, they're not saying a platted piece, they're talking a parcel. So we're talking every single piece of property is a parcel. They all have parcel numbers.
Okay,
So 80, 160, it's a parcel.
okay.
It doesn't say lot only, it says parcel. So according to this, you couldn't reduce anything below, in other words, you couldn't take 40 acres or 80
Below the
acres and
minimum
make,
required.
and make a 19 and a whatever out of it.
But it says minimum requirements set forth herein. That means if we make an allowance for it in the ordinance, it's allowed. That's what
Yeah,
it says, that's the wording.
It's pretty iffy. Yeah, you know,
It
to be honest
says
with you,
below the minimum
I'd
requirements
just
set
get rid of
forth
it.
herein.
I'd
That
strike it
means
through.
within this ordinance.
I don't see what the benefit of it is. Other than it makes you cringe every time you give a variance or plat.
But doesn't it mean, I guess I don't interpret it the same way, maybe it basically says when you pass this ordinance, if it didn't meet the minimum requirements, you don't have to go in there and make it, and change anything.
What if you have?
Grandfather, but then, after the ordinance was put in place, then everything has to meet the minimum requirements of the ordinance.
If you have a non-conforming lot of record, after, that was established prior to the ordinance, and I'm thinking of one right now, that would not meet any of the requirements as far as yard space and access and all this stuff, but they still built on it. So apparently it came here and it got a variance of some sort, but it was through no act of the person buying the lot. It was because the road had changed and it left this island of land on the other side of the road that was pie shaped that was basically inaccessible, and the guy did get a driveway made into it. And there's like a 300 square foot house on it. And now the guy is moving away.
Oh, is that right?
So now you've got this one-room schoolhouse on top of this knob in a non-conforming lot that you can't technically add anything onto or do anything with. I don't know how this, if this does anything to do that. I think, apparently it was allowed to be variance somehow to let it get built.
So you're saying it didn't meet, in other words, it would have been, if it was platted before, it should have been a non-conforming, should have been a lot of record. So as a lot of record, you still have the right to build on it as long as what you're building is either a principal or it has a principal and you're building an accessory. So
Right.
originally it would have been a principal use,
Right.
permitted use. So if he met the setbacks for footage to the 30-foot, the 20-foot, the 10-foot, or whatever, I don't know where this place is, whether it was 75 feet or whatever, I
Yeah.
don't know what it was.
So he's far, he's met all those requirements. The problem being, of course, it become basically, the way it was cut off, it became an unmarketable piece of property because of, everything here.
Mhm.
So the size of what he could build on it and stuff was pretty minimal, but he wanted to build his little house.
But he went a little tiny so that he could meet the setbacks, is what you're saying.
Tiny houses are coming into being.
Now it's sitting there.
So the next person
That is.
who buys it may want to
Yeah.
make it bigger than 300
Well,
square
unless
feet.
it was
What did they do?
self-contained and they pumped it.
Now, he's
Yeah, I
actually
don't
got
know.
a septic system and put a well in and all that. I mean, the water, everything is there.
No, nobody wants to buy an
I think
acre.
the house is really cute on the inside.
Hmm.
Yeah, I shouldn't say that.
There was 5 people in there.
That's why it's.
Well, like
I don't know, John, I don't know, like you say, the intent, everything in in your area, down in your campground area and stuff like that, because of either topography or whatever of what you're creating. Sometimes, if you've got a piece of property that's marketable, it's awful hard to meet
It is.
all the minimum requirements and still make it a
Well,
saleable piece of property.
I mean, that's, I think that's what John's saying, I mean, maybe we should just remove it, because seriously, we are gonna change these. No matter what we do moving forward, there will always be a piece of
A
ground
unique
that has
I just
a
don't,
reason
yeah.
for that.
I just don't see the benefit of it. In other words, there's other things in the individual districts and stuff that do a better job of telling you what sizes you gotta have than saying
Yeah.
nothing can be changed that was here before. Because to me, this is what this says. This says that any property that was here can't be changed, unless it's gonna be changed to meet the specific district sizes. And we have ways within those districts for properties that can't or don't meet those sizes, but this doesn't allow for that. This doesn't speak to that. This just says everything has to meet all
Going
the
forward,
sizes.
going forward.
Yeah.
It's a dividing line, basically. It's your grandfather clause. It says everything before the ordinance, if it doesn't meet the new ordinance, is okay. Nobody's gonna come out and tell you, in an ag district, if you've got less than 20 acres, you gotta go buy more acreage, right? I mean, that applies to things like that too.
Yes.
So you can't just go striking something like this. I think that's a slippery slope, because it doesn't just apply to this setbacks and this thing or that thing, it applies to everything, right? So you can't just, you have to have some sort of a grandfather clause in an ordinance, no matter what you do, because there's always that's why there's dates at the top here, you know? So you can,
That's a recent addition, the dates at the
Well,
top. but yeah.
that's why there's dates at the top.
No.
However they got there,
No,
they're
yeah,
there, but, right? Am I,
Yes, except it has nothing to do with anything except lot size.
dimensions or area?
Just lot size. That's
And
all it has
it
to
only
do.
talks of minimum, it doesn't talk about buying more, so it's like.
But is it really a problem going forward to leave that there?
You know, here's the deal. It's not now, but it was for the first 5 years. And, I'm already seeing things that we had straightened out becoming no longer straightened out because we have changes, not so much in this board, but in the zoning office. We, early on, and this is why I got involved in zoning said that if you had lots in continuous frontage and they didn't meet the minimum requirements, you had to join them together, and the minimum requirements were 40 acres. So everything out at the lake, we went through several years where we couldn't sell a lot, and technically the zoning said we were supposed to plat them back together. And we fought and fought and fought with the zoning administrator we had then, and we're not doing it, we're just gonna go to court. I said, there's tons of us out here with developments, and we're not gonna put our lots back together into a 40-acre lot that we can't sell. So now, that kinda got all straightened out, that all got washed through. But now, I've heard that our zoning administrator is telling somebody who's got a property that's got 3 lots that are between 3/4 and 1 acre that he needs to put them together into one lot. Now, this is stuff that's been straightened out already as far as I'm concerned, but because it didn't get changed or written in the ordinance, it all comes back to interpretation of a new person again. And you're starting from scratch on stuff that got fixed.
What district, what kind of a district is it in?
I think it's out in a 1 acre district, you know.
In a 1 acre district.
Yeah.
But they have been plotted or already.
Here's my understanding, and actually Brian is the one that told me this, is that there were several 1 acre lots that one person owned all of them and lived on it. And now somebody that bought the property wants to sell off some of the other lots that were already platted, and Brian is saying, you can't do that, you're gonna have to join them together because they don't.
So in an instance like that, though, wouldn't it be like a preliminary plat, like a subdivision? You know, like, we're not gonna do it, here's where we platted it out, you know, there's one right out there by the state park where that old school is, wherever that road is, it goes up, it looks like a question mark. And there's, I think, 21 or 24 lots, right? So that, they came in and they wanted to plat it out, and they platted it, and then they built 2 houses. You know, then it was whatever, so it should be going forward that if someone wanted to buy another lot, then they would pick that, you know, lot 1A or 8, or 6, or whatever.
Well, once it's platted, I don't know how they can.
It should have been
intend
lots
it.
of record, but if you read the nonconformance, that's, you know, it does not give that to lots of record with under $1,000 of construction on them. It doesn't really give them the same rights as a lot with over $1,000 worth of construction on it. Because he asked me what I thought about it. And I said, well, I thought we had it all straightened out a long time ago. You know, and part of the problem with some of this stuff is it just doesn't come up very often, you know? It came up a lot in the beginning, but not a lot now. But there's a fair amount of places where somebody's gonna own, and not just in residential, some of it will be in ag, where there's different lots around the farm and stuff, where somebody's gonna own a farm that has broken into 3 pieces of less than 20 acres around the farm site, because I know of several of them.
There's acreages all over the county that are less than
Yeah.
40 acres. I live on one.
Yeah,
My 4 other neighbors live on one. I mean, they're everywhere. But that's the whole point of this, is that was done before the ordinance.
That was done before the ordinance. I
Yes.
don't know how they could even mess with it.
So if somebody, I don't care who it is saying that people have to combine lots or whatever, well, was it before the ordinance or after the ordinance that these lots were created?
before.
Well, then that's
Then
not
they're
correct then,
grandfathered
to
in.
have to join them together, right?
You've gotta read through nonconformance. Read through the section on nonconformance.
I guess,
Well,
That's
what-
where the problem is.
Let's see, we came here to talk about accessory structures, and now we're getting into lot
That's what I was
size.
gonna say. Part of what, it wasn't just accessory structures, but there's been other things, it's like, that needs to go on the list of things that need to get fixed. And I'm not denying it, but I haven't seen it in the years that I've been on it. So maybe that's one of those deals, if it pops up a bunch, then you look at, does it, you know, cause one of the things was like accessory structures, like, oh my God, every meeting,
Every month, yeah.
Yeah.
there was
Just
something,
about
so
every
that's why,
month.
like, we gotta fix this, you know?
Yes.
yeah.
And there's other ones that we've all brought up, like, man, that happens,
I mean, the only reason I brought this up is because Brian brought it up to me before our last meeting, you know, that this was going on.
well, I don't think we can
It's-
go in and
it's
wholesale
been-
rewrite the whole ordinance, but if
No,
it
no.
becomes something, it becomes, you know, in a public forum like this, a lot of times the public generates the path or the, you know, the cow trail where things go, like, it keeps coming, or,
I just think
Every one of
that's,
these definitions, non-conforming lot, structure, and use mentions at the time of this ordinance.
there's an actual section of nonconformance in here, a full section.
Oh, okay.
Not,
What
not
So it
article is
contradicts the
What article
definitions?
is it?
it has additional stuff in there.
Okay, let's get back to accessory structures if we could, Madam
Let's
Chair.
put that on our
First,
list for a
because
future meeting.
we're gonna get way off. and
Because
we-
it's also been said that once the lot that was created prior to zoning, if it's a non-conforming lot, but it's grandfathered in, that non-conformance goes away because it has grandfather. You know, it's now been accepted into Yankton County, and, you know,
But you
so
can't-
it's there.
You can't make it more non-conforming,
Right.
but it can be added as
Right, but
non-conforming
it
where was
says-
at.
Correct.
And
Set
then
forth herein.
Agree with
That
all that
means,
stuff.
that means set forth within the ordinance,
We
to
just
me,
had
when
one,
it's set
I
forth
think,
with
Chris, you
herein.
were actually still on, somewhere out by the lake, right? It was like a little triangle at the entrance to a subdivision, and it was a really like super dinky lot, and the guy, I think he was from Sioux Falls, wanted to buy it, and he's like, I just want a weekend cabin, and it was gonna be where the setbacks, it was kinda like a two-stepped-up story house. I mean, it was like literally like a third of an acre or something, but it was actually a legal lot. So if he can meet the setbacks, it's like, go for it, man. You know, can't remember where it was, like out by,
Is that where you turn into Gavin's Point, only across the road to the north?
I think that's what it was, yeah.
Yeah. that sounds
yeah, it was a
familiar.
little triangle, right, like there's a roadway and,
He's got a road
yeah, I
on two
think it was,
sides.
like if you came in the entrance, it was.
But
gonna
he
be the-
wasn't making that lot smaller, he was
Right,
just
right.
building on it, and if he
Yeah.
can meet the setbacks, why wouldn't he build on it?
Right, exactly. Because some of the neighbors said, well, I don't want him to build there, it changes their view. Yeah, but it's, he can fit.
He can do
10,
it
20,
legally
30,
though.
And he did, I think.
You know, it's not like he was taking that 3-acre lot and saying, okay, now I want a 1/5 of an acre lot, you know.
So
He
what
wasn't
more,
reducing
what more
that lot.
discussion are you looking for on the,
So,
on the accessory
Does
structure?
everybody-
Well, were we done? I didn't know.
Well,
We
I
decided
think-
we were done.
I kinda thought we were, but.
Oh,
so-
well, we didn't have a discussion about
We
it.
didn't
So
have a
are we
vote or
on,
anything.
are we on Article 6 then, 55, or which ones are we on? Because, I mean, there's 3 different sections, isn't there, Article 6, 7, and 8?
well, Kristen
Right.
ran through what we had talked about
That'll-
at the last meeting. Is everybody in agreement with those sizes, those sidewalls?
Yeah,
What were
I
they,
mean,
one more time?
Everybody-
Read through.
Anybody
I
have
will
any
read through
other
it.
thoughts on that?
I'll read through it one more
Right.
time, and then there'll be additional discussion if, you know, we have any questions or points you wanna add. All right, so as it stands now, the ordinance reads that in R1 zone, the limit is 2,000 square feet, and I believe sidewall height of 14 feet.
Right.
And we are proposing to double the square footage to 4,000 square feet and add 2 feet to the maximum sidewall, making the sidewall 16 feet. Okay, then, everybody got that? Can I go on?
Yep.
All right, so in R2, zone R2, the maximum accessory structure size is 1,200 square feet with a sidewall height of 12 feet. We are proposing to increase that to 2,400 square feet maximum with a 14-foot sidewall. So we're again bumping that sidewall height up 2 feet. In R3, rural residential, the current limit for square footage on an accessory structure is 800 square feet with, I believe, a 12-foot sidewall. And we're gonna leave the sidewall height
10.
at, oh, it's 10, I'm
Was
sorry.
10.
You're right.
And you're gonna move that to.
We're gonna bump that up to 12 feet for the sidewall, and the square footage, bumping it up to 1,600 square feet maximum. Should they want a building, and we also said that if that building is built, it must meet all the setbacks.
Yep.
You know, we can
Everything else
increase the size of the structure, but only if it meets all the setbacks. If they want something more than that, then they need to come to us and get a CUP.
So then we would need to add those conditional uses in, under each of those districts too. We would need to add a conditional use.
So would the conditional use for, say, section 807 would be, you know, accessory structure larger than 1,600 square foot?
And or sidewall height over 12 foot, and then
Okay.
continues with the definition as measured from the
Okay.
highest point of the, you know, there's a continuation of the, whatever it says in there. But you could have exactly the same conditional use in each one of those sections, and all you have to do is have a different square footage. a different sidewall height, and then keep the rest of the definition that's in there.
So a permitted use would be 1,600 square foot and 12-foot sidewall or less.
Yep,
And then a conditional use is anything larger than that.
correct. That way it takes
makes
it totally
sense.
out of the variance procedure.
Yeah.
Only thing you would be using the variance procedure for is what Donna was talking about, whereas if they had a topography problem and they said, well, I can't quite, I gotta go 2 foot too close or something to this one, because I can't make it because we got a waterway going through or something.
You know, all your
Okay,
other
so-
minimum requirements would stay
All
just
stay
the
the
way
The
they are.
CUP would be for larger than that.
Correct. Larger or taller.
Okay, so variance would be sizes or,
Variance would be for
Minimum lot.
setbacks, yeah.
okay, only.
And typically, you would think they would be very hard to get, you'd have to have a pretty good reason,
Yeah,
is kind
I
of.
believe the city did, when they did something similar to this, the city of Yankton, what they were telling me is they changed their accessory structures and then no more variances
Mhm.
at all. If you wanna build that kind of thing, you get in a lot where you can do that.
Yeah.
And,
and but they in the city, they do what John was talking about, like, my house is closer to the road in an old neighborhood, so I can move
You
my
can
garage
stick with, you can stick with whatever
to that, to
yours
that
was before zoning,
frontage.
yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if there'd be a way, and I don't know where you would put that to write that in. It's a good thing to have, kinda as a,
Yeah,
an
I
idea
read
going
that
forward,
in,
but-
was it Union County and, what's it, Clay County, one of those two?
What-
I
I don't know
copied
if you're,
that ordinance.
as far
They
as,
kind
you
of
can,
have
you
that
can,
as a-
you can
about
build things to the
50.
nonconformance where you're at, but you don't enlarge your nonconformance, you don't get,
Right.
you don't get farther into the right of way or anything like that. I don't know that we really have there might be a little bit of that language in the nonconformance.
I just read it,
Yeah.
as you told me
Yeah.
to look
But I
at it,
think
so
we
I
need
went.
to be careful
I don't think
there.
it's specific about it,
It's-
I think they still should come to us for a CUP for this reason. I mean, some of these things, they could be like Blackburn and Stevens, they're like 4 feet from the
Yeah, the
street.
sidewalk, yeah.
Yeah.
It's an unusual situation, but
Yeah.
you don't want to encourage that. And it could be near an intersection where if they built that right up to the same level as the house, you'd block views of an intersection or something like that.
We never really found a way to make it a change, before when we were here, that I know of. We just kind of set a precedent of this is what's allowed, and then,
Yeah,
and then,
the one what Christie's talking about though, where the road moved to.
Yeah,
Black
the
Moved to
road
Stevens,
moved to
and
the
then we
front
did
of
the
the
same
house.
thing with Weaversteds when they wanted to build that, get that, livestock feeding permit there at the end of the airport. And they were closer to the airport runway than what they were supposed to be, but the deal was, as the airport moved to
to
them,
them.
Mm.
Right,
they didn't move to the airport.
right.
And
But
that's
I
where-
mean, you wouldn't want them to build a 20-foot shed at that limit.
Well, and they were
And-
restricted by that anyway, by federal government not doing that, but it's the same reason that the land on the other side of the road got sold, just because they had to have that buffer of nothing over they can't plant corn on the west side of the highway there where that grass is, because it's too tall.
Too tall.
It can only be a grass crop or
Oh,
a small grain or
something
something
short.
that stays below, a certain level, so that,
For traffic
goes down and
disability.
find it.
Mm.
Yeah.
But that's why that odd shaped piece on the other side of the road is, because it's just, they had to make boundaries on that to make that
Mhm.
fit the federal regulations or the state zone around the airport.
Sure.
But I'm guessing what you're saying is not all cases of nonconformance would you want them to go to exactly where they're at if you're.
Yeah.
So if you put it in there that was just allowed in the
Then it'd be
situation,
rubber
Then they-
stamped without.
They do it even if they
people-
could go back farther in
Right.
time, yeah.
I
Right,
can see that, where if it may be a little better to have the discretion of it being before the board to use it
Sure.
yeah.
as consistently as they can, but not have it written
Just-
clear in black
Just
and
rubber
white.
stamped.
And most of these, where we're getting these new accessory structures are on newer properties that are meeting these. I mean, it's not all the time that we're getting them on non-conforming lots where it would do that. I think, the zoning ordinance is starting to work in that regard, where the lots have been set up large enough where we're not dealing that.
A lot of them that we saw, at least I should say when I was on there, that we saw were people like Riverside Acres that wanted one, you know, and 800 square foot was kind of small if you're in the 1 or the 2 acre part.
Yeah,
Got a lot of backyard in
And
almost.
there's a lot of acreage there for some of those guys, but you don't just wanna say, you know, necessarily, back then, if you were gonna get a variance and put a 1,600 square footer in some of those little half acre lots,
Yeah.
you were gonna have a fight on your hands with the neighborhood, you know?
In the same sense as like the one that we approved last week on Chris Road down there, where you end up in an area where there's nothing around you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you still gotta make it aware, but you can variance the setbacks or the lot, you know, from the lot lines and stuff, because there is nothing on the other side.
Yeah.
I mean, there can't be, or there won't be.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And he was in a bad position, cause it's half acre, if you go to the east of him a little ways, there's some, maybe not even quite half acre stuff, and there's half acre stuff to the west of him. So it's just mixed in. You could not put half acre zoning on that, because you wouldn't have, how would you have made anything in any of those little lots if you didn't put half acre zoning up there? He's just stuck in an island of half acre zoning.
And that's why I think if you said hard and fast rules, like nothing after this, you know,
Mhm.
you gotta leave some flexibility for
Yeah.
the counties, from the county standpoint and from the landowner standpoint. I mean, there's always gonna be something strange that pops up, and if you, and now if your ordinance says, no, you shall never, ever, ever do this, then you can't do anything, even if you want to.
Yeah.
So I think some flexibility, listen, you have to have a zoning administrator, and you have to have a zoning and planning board with a brain that can make decisions based on what they see and make, you know, and be flexible. That's my opinion. If you can't regulate your way out of every problem, you gotta have people here. That's why we're here, right? If you could do that, you wouldn't need us. You could just go through a computer, hit the button, and it would tell you yes or no, and you spit out a piece of paper and let you do it. But I mean, that's my.
When I was in South Carolina, one of the things when you wanted like a conditional use permit, and you think about what we're talking about here, conditional use is gonna be taller or bigger or whatever else, there was a $1,000 application fee for conditional use. And you know what, that's not like super outrageous, but it's enough to where you go,
Do I really want to do this?
is that 10 feet extra?
That's a good
really?
point.
You know, and that's something maybe that they just looked at that.
That's a good point.
If you can really justify it, you know, look at the bed and breakfast, Knifel. It'd be like, whatever, I mean, I got 40 acres, I need to do it, here's $1,000. But the other guy that's like, man, I really need to do this because my RV won't, you know, we're like, yeah, but if you're in a R1 or 3 or whatever, maybe we should also look at something like that. It's not impossible, but it makes the homeowner really think about, yeah.
I'll just go with the size that's allowed. It's,
Right,
you know,
exactly.
and really, that's
And that
hopefully
kinda
the point
says-
of it
And
is.
it kinda says, if
Yeah.
you're asking for a conditional use, it's super out of the ordinary, and is it worth it to you?
Right.
Yeah. I know, what the 8 county meeting, talking to Minnehaha and those people, they, we're way, way low, and maybe that's something we should look at sometime. I don't think our fees have been raised since 2004.
What was it, $100 to apply for a conditional use?
Yeah, I think it's quite a bit more in most of the other
I mean,
counties. I think even Hutchinson's higher.
I mean, just from an administrative standpoint, I don't even know if you're covering your costs to process the paperwork at $100. Sorry, I mean, really,
I don't think so. I think, and that's
It's worth the
another one of
gamble.
the,
I mean, it's like, oh, this is kind of, I don't know if I'm gonna get this, but I'll throw $100 at it and see if it sticks.
Yeah.
Right.
and just like you said, if we're doing 5 of these a month and they each take 5 hours, that's a good chunk of somebody's, you know, week right there, just
Right.
on those, and not being spent on planning and updating ordinances and.
Right.
Well, I
Other
mean, and all of
things,
those have to be published in the paper, it's like, that. There's a big expense
Right.
to these things.
Yeah, $100 anymore, I mean, I don't wanna sound
Well, maybe that's
like I
what-
throw $100
So-
bills out the window, but it's not, you know,
Yeah.
it's $5 for a cup of coffee at IV, I mean, you know.
they
so-
don't take them in the fast food places.
Yeah, I know.
We're actually discussing that at the commission meeting. I mean, what is your guys', I mean, no official recommendation, but we're at $100 for conditional use permits, $100 for variances. I mean,
I'll tell you what,
Do you
this
got-
is the cheapest permits on anything,
Yeah,
anywhere I've
yeah.
ever been. When I used to build a house, the permit to build the house was $2,500.
Right,
Well, instead of a $200,000 house, it was a $202,500 house.
Well, I think, you know, if you're just gonna build a garage, adding $2,500 to it's pretty,
Right,
pretty
but-
punitive. You know,
But like a conditional use, if you wanna make it 16 feet tall instead of 14, is it then, you sit down and go, really, is it worth what I get for the $1,000? And a lot of people would be like, whatever, it's $1,000.
Well, I agree with Mike in the fact that, you know, the basic stuff that people are doing as far as getting a permit for a garage or a house, you know, maybe they need to go up a little bit, but I don't think they would go up exorbitantly. But when you're asking somebody to do something
Out of the ordinary.
like a conditional use or a variance that's, you know, a whole bunch of extra work and I can see that where you can charge, you know, you can charge a few $100s for something
Well,
like
I
that.
got it right, yeah, variance $100, conditional use permit $100, rezone or amendment $150, a special meeting is $350, and a plat proposal $30 is what, and is updated January 20th, 2004. So
I
it's
mean,
been a while.
I mean, when you guys look at it, I don't think you go with Minnehaha, but somewhere, I mean, I think you check around, see what the going rate is for
Brookings or
something.
whatever,
I don't think-
Brookings, they're comparable to us, or
Yeah,
Watertown.
I think
or
so.
Yeah.
Aberdeen, you know.
Go ahead.
But I think the basic stuff like a building permit, you know, it really doesn't take very much. And especially if you're gonna be doing it online,
No.
the fee should be pretty minimal
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, so-
It's when you're.
Is it just a basic, it's not a percentage?
No, well, for
Yeah.
permit fees, if it's $1,000, valued at $1,000, it's $10. And then from $10,000 to $1,000, it's 25.
Isn't it,
30,000 is
isn't it
35, so.
percentage?
No, it's a jump, every so
Every
many
jumps.
thousand, it jumps up to the next one, it jumps.
But
up.
at 300,000 or higher, it's $100.
Which is like crazy, cause I
Still
was.
high.
Yeah.
It is pretty-
That's low.
It's like 1% or whatever the contracted price on that house. You know,
Right.
you look at our building permit, whether it's city or county, and I sit with both, and it's, someone's building, let's say Judy or Applewood, one of them out by my house, and it's like, the guy's permit is like $45, and the builder says it's only gonna be $145,000 house. Right, the rest of them on the street are $450. I mean, you know, I think that we have got to catch that up, and again, I think like
Okay.
a Brookings or Aberdeen or Watertown, those are our comparable sister municipalities in the state. What are they charging?
What about even the city of Yankton,
City of Yankton.
City of Yankton,
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
not
if
sure.
you're building a $400,000, a $2.5 million house on the golf course, and you're going out on a hill and you're building a $2.5 million house overlooking the lake, you should be able to get it done for $100.
No. But there's a difference because there's inspections and
Yeah.
stuff that come
Well,
out of the city.
I understand
That they're
that.
charging you for.
But there's also more inspections coming with a lot of this other stuff.
Yeah,
too.
but a lot of that's driven by the state, and then there's another fee on those, see what I mean? So the building permit isn't the only fee, you
Yeah,
gotta,
it doesn't really cost the
You got the
county
pony fee,
that much.
but
I understand that, but I think what I'm saying is I think you need to look at a percentage of the total overall cost of the building, whatever's being put up, in a comparable figure,
Sure.
you know, because, you know, like you said, you're looking at, you know.
So in the federal government that I work for, how they figure out total cost on something when we're writing estimates and contracts is take the rate like an administrator that's entering all this data, take their hourly rate times 2.64. So if they make $20 an hour, it costs $55 an hour to produce that service because of medical benefits, disability, vacation
Hey,
time.
because you guys get paid.
You know, all of those things, those are all costs that are still added in there, that's just how
Right.
much it costs.
Well, that's what I was gonna say before, was that you really gotta get a handle on whatever the planning and zoning administrator, what that office cost, we should at least be covering the cost of the office, I think. I mean, the other parts of the county shouldn't subsidize that, because the people that use that office should be paying for that, that's my thought.
That's a
It should
good,
be
yeah,
paid
yeah,
for,
that's a very good point.
you know,
I have a little argument with that, because everybody
that's why there's nine
is
of us.
benefiting from the zoning. If people
Yeah.
weren't benefiting from the zoning, then there wouldn't be any cost to them.
I'm not
But
benefiting from your building permit.
actually, you're benefiting from the restrictions that are put on me or
If
anybody
you're
else.
building out there and I live
You
over
still
there.
are.
Because
Still are.
eventually, when it's built,
Yeah.
there'll be tax revenue generated and you'll benefit from that.
Everybody who wants restrictions has to be willing to pay a little bit for those
We
restrictions.
do though,
to
as a
be in place
county,
as well.
you have to learn that we can't be doing things on the cheap all the time, because
Yeah.
there's not enough money to run this county. So, you know,
Well, that's-
but anywhere you can go without being a burden,
Right.
Right.
but you
I
still
without
have
being
to
a
get
burden,
it
let's not go over the
Yeah.
top, but
Yeah.
without being a burden, we do
Still
have
gotta
to
cover the costs.
increase those costs.
I mean,
I would like to see it cost the county a little bit to have zoning all the time. I would like to see people know that it costs us money to have zoning.
Well, you're,
We're not making money on zoning.
Well, then let's
It
just
should
pay
cost us
let's
money.
pay ourselves.
you're getting
a living wage
$25
to
for
sit
this
here.
meeting.
making money, well, yeah, but the money goes for all of us to use, so it goes right back into the community.
I know what you're
But let's just, can we all agree that $100 to do anything is dirt cheap? Like, I mean, come on.
So do you have numbers, like, do anybody have a number? I know Minnehaha was at like 250 and they were thinking about raising theirs because they thought they were, you know,
Because it costs way more to do it.
for a variance and conditional use
Oh.
permit. Is what they were saying.
Well,
Is that too
I
low
mean, if you're
still?
gonna come in for a
So
variance,
what is the planning director's salary gonna be, whenever that's?
That's dependent on experience.
So that's, well, is it roughly
Yeah.
40,000?
It's gotta
We,
be
it
at least
depends on the person, and I don't wanna say,
Yeah, but
because if we're, in if it's, this is gonna be a meeting, and if I
Okay.
tell you, then,
I'll
and I
just
see
use an
this, they'll
example.
know.
Let's just use this
So-
$20 an hour. So that means that service
It's gonna be-
costs $40 an hour to
More
provide
than
it.
Mhm.
To pay that person $20 an hour. It costs $40 an hour because of the cost of health benefits, vacation time.
Right,
sick
but if it's a
leave.
building permit and he goes, go with God and build your building.
Especially if they're
Well,
online, you
Right,
know.
but there's still.
Yeah, and if you're
20
doing it
an
on,
hour.
yeah.
But when they did that stamp, there was still something got recorded, and it was entered here. Every building permit's probably a half, even if nothing happens, it's a half hour. You know, and then you divide it out, there's 2,000 hours in a year.
He's gotta drive around the county to check things out.
Well,
So I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but I do think we've gotta come to a more realistic, I lived in Yankton for 15 years and that has not went up, but the price of a Big Mac has went up double since I moved to Yankton, you know?
Yeah.
what about, just food for thought, a percent of, say 1% of the cost of the project? You know, because like you talk about people building a garage, okay, you can build a pretty nice garage or a package garage, I mean, for
20,000, what would that be?
Well, that's a kid, but then you get elected and smack, you're at 25.
Yeah.
So
I mean-
1% of that's $250. I don't think that's unreasonable.
no.
Yeah, I mean, I just,
Even if you're doing a $300,000 house, it's $300, you know?
Well, and houses and projects are getting bigger.
$3,000.
In 2004, a
No,
$300,000
$1,000.
house, there weren't that many,
$3,000, right.
there weren't that many $300,000 houses in 2004.
No.
That's almost a
The
standard.
problem you
anymore.
run into with that is now regulation. I mean, what do you do, you know? So, I mean, if you're
Yeah,
gonna
when
build
you-
300,000, you come in here and say, no, it's only gonna cost 200,000, save yourself $100.
Well, again, like when I was
It's just
talking
$1,000.
about, it was whatever the signed contract was, that was what the hospital.
I mean, it's like, but
It's the honor
then when they
system.
have it appraised, it's 400,000.
Yeah, but if it was whatever the signed contract is, they're probably borrowing the money, so that's
Yeah.
probably a pretty realistic number.
But
you know?
now it gets, it's less percentage wise, the higher you go for value, right, Dan?
What's that?
The numbers you gave us, the higher you go, I mean, I think it was 1%, you say $1,000
No,
less.
I don't even know what it is. It's less than 1,000, it's 10.
Which is
10,000 or less,
1%,
it's
right?
25, 30,000 or less, it's 35, 50,000 or less, 45, 100,000
Still.
to 50,000, 55, 200,000 to 100,000, 75, 300,000 to 200,000, 100, and then valued at 300,000 or higher is $100 plus $1 per thousand over 300,000.
You're right, that 300,000 guy's getting a big break. Cause at $1,000, $10 is 1%.
Yeah,
So that guy that's getting, that guy, if it's 1%, at that $300,000 home would be a $3,000.
if you go in and you buy a $70,000
Move
truck,
that decimal.
a $2,500 truck, I mean, it's based on what you pay, and, but that delineates when someone builds their house, if they're not gonna pay the $3,000 thing, I don't think it'll happen, because they're still gonna go spend it.
Yeah. Well, even if you drop that to 0.5% at 300,000, it's still
That's
$1,500, it's still, you know.
$100.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
just
still
think anyway,
15 times what they pay now.
Our numbers are too low that they don't cover the cost, what it
Well,
provides, cost
that's
of
what it
providing
comes back to.
service.
That's what it comes back to.
Yeah.
But like conditional uses and variances, I mean, I could see them $500, you know?
Yeah, but if you're talking about 1%, then you gotta be
Well, I'm
apples and
talking, well,
apples.
building permits can be separate than other, I mean, you could have different cost structures with different.
That's how it is right now. I mean, a variance for, or a conditional use permit for a church is this. I mean, and for the ethanol plant, it's the same.
Same thing,
It's the
right.
same $100, you know,
I
it's,
think
it's,
that's- I
and
think
there,
that's
and you,
where your
and
two
there's
chief
vastly
estimates-
different amounts of work that
Yeah.
go
Right.
into
Right.
those two things.
Yeah, that's way too
Right.
cheap for a conditional
So-
use. There's so much work in conditional use.
Right,
You know,
much
and-
more
and
than a
a-
building.
I'm not saying you
variance
couldn't
and
do
all
a
that.
percentage, but I'm just saying you don't have to do that for across the board. I would,
I'll do,
because how do you value
Well, if, you know, you couldn't really, you'd have to do across, you'd have to do it, because the cost, you know, a CUP is gonna cost as much time if it's a $100,000 project, if it's $1 million project, because, I mean, you still have to, you know, publish the stuff, you have to send out the letters, you have to. there's
extra
a lot.
meetings and
Well, see,
everything?
one of the things I think as a plan commission, that we should have this idea before back to the county commission, do we think the cost of, the administrative cost of permits and conditional use is too low? And here's where, you know, then I think we can find out what does Aberdeen, Watertown, Brookings.
Well, so
City
far, we've
Limit-
got two things we need to talk about at the next meeting. Let's finish this one.
Yeah.
But just one more thing, if I might.
Yeah.
9 times 25 is what? 225?
225.
Right, so that's what it costs. If everybody here gets their $25, which
I don't charge.
I don't either, but if everybody did,
Yeah.
well,
I'm not
but
asking who's taking it or not.
How much-
I'm just saying, if everybody here,
to film the video, what is it, 225, 250 to film? But I mean, that's
See, that's one of
$500
those
to
costs.
have this
just to have a meeting,
meeting.
it's
That's
$500.
one of those
Yeah,
costs.
exactly.
Rough it. With the light, you gotta turn the lights on, you gotta air
So-
conditioners
So,
running.
I mean, and that's a great point, is just covered the costs
Right.
of being here. It's the cost of doing business, you know, it's,
And when Brian's here at a regular
15
meeting,
years.
you're paying him, right? I
yeah,
was so glad the
65
hour.
bucks an hour,
So-
yeah. So,
It doesn't, we're in the hole every time.
So at $55 an hour, Brian gets $55 an hour, costs $110 an hour to have him here.
yeah,
He's a subcontractor.
yeah.
Now
Still, he's
we're,
got taxes and insurance. and
we're way,
That's it.
we're way, yeah.
You know?
There it is. Any more questions, Mr. Thomas?
No, I'm gonna be quiet now, so.
Anyway, where we at?
Okay,
Yeah.
accessory
All right, so
structures.
do we agree with the size and the sidewall height
I think
increases?
we're all in agreement of this, so it,
Okay,
I think, I do.
The only thing, basically what we're saying though, with our size changes, is if, say, in the R2 and you're doing 1,600 or what are the 2,000 or whatever the number was, and then a 14-foot sidewall, somebody comes in and wants a 16-foot sidewall, they have to come in for a conditional.
for a CUP, yep.
Anything other than that, beyond
Right.
the size, what is
Beyond the
stated in
size or the sidewall height.
So we'd really have to make, you know, two changes to the permitted accessory use and structure
And then
Yep.
and conditional use
You'd have to add the conditional uses.
for
in the
each
street.
one of those
Right.
would be the change. And does it, I mean, are we all kind of thinking that this is the way we're gonna go? Or should we schedule like something out in the, on Highway 50, like a town hall or something?
Proposal, this is what is
Yeah,
proposed,
don't we have to write up the exact language that we're gonna use?
Yeah,
you
we
know?
would,
And then if you wanted
Mhm.
public input, just, hey,
yeah.
Well, can we work through that language
Well-
right now, or?
Yeah, let's do that, I
And get
guess.
this done?
I think, you know, in like the conditional use stuff, you can just go to one of them and they'll all be the same,
Well,
other
right.
than the
It
number,
shouldn't
so
be that
it shouldn't be that
some
hard.
conditional use, subparagraph 10-1, whatever.
We could just start on,
It's section,
R1.
we start with 6 since it's the
Article
chronological
6.
here, is that all right?
page
with you?
55, is that where we're at?
It's page 55 and it is section 605, permitted accessory
So
uses.
number,
of-
number 1, 605, number 1.
A1 to, oh, it'd be A1, 4,000 square foot accessory building, sidewall height not to exceed 16 feet.
That would be it,
So-
right?
That would be it for that.
So what happens if somebody has like a little garden shed and then they wanna build that? That, it wouldn't matter, correct? If somebody has a smaller shed already there and then wants to build this, we wouldn't,
I think as long as it fits
Okay.
the
Setbacks
setbacks and stuff.
okay.
There was one
Because-
time they were
because
talking about
they
a guy pergola being an accessory structure.
You can have
and
a-
his awning on his porch.
Does it say somewhere in here that you can only have one
Well, it
accessory
says
structure?
One.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to, you know, if you can have one, you can have more.
Right.
They would have to get rid of the small one.
Well, that was the intent of having the small sheds
Mhm.
not being an accessory structure, the little ones not having a
Well,
building
yeah,
permit.
because
So then
you
you,
could build
then
that
we'd
in-
have to have a definition for a garden shed and then another size. You know, it's like,
We don't wanna do
it's
that.
like
We're
a
hoping
slippery
to
slope.
eliminate those by letting, instead of somebody having
They'll just-
three garden sheds, let them have
Right.
one big shed.
But they'll have one, yeah.
So then in 607, under conditional uses on the next page, we would have to add the conditional use.
It would be,
Where we at?
it would start same way, right?
And it could say
Same language, the one,
all the same, it could say, yes,
One
A1
4,000 square foot accessory building.
over that square footage, and/or sidewall height over. And then it could say the same thing, as measured from the highest point of the finished floor
Could
grade.
it say,
So that the two things, the conditional use and the permitted accessory use, would technically say the same thing, except the conditional use would say over those sizes.
Over.
yeah, exceed, or say the
Or.
word
We
exceeding?
need to have
Exceeding
or,
over,
not an
whichever we would
and.
like to
Could
have.
say, and,
No, or.
say, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Sorry, I
maybe
wasn't-
missed
We
it.
need it, the conjunction to be or rather than and.
Where, can you say the whole?
Actually, it has to be and/or, because you may have both
Okay,
on one
that's-
structure.
that's-
And/or is what I have.
Say somebody wants to build a 1,200 square one, but they want it 18.
Right.
Yeah, or they wanted,
So
I
it'd be
think
an
that's why.
accessory
So,
building.
so if either the
exceeding
accessory is bigger or the height is taller
Right.
than that.
So is
Either,
it-
either instance.
And
And
slash
accessory
or.
building exceeding either,
I think the word exceeding is better than the word over, too.
Okay.
It should
exceeding
exceed.
either 4,000 square feet
Yep.
or
And
16
or.
feet.
And/or,
And
yes.
slash or.
Well,
It's
exceed,
gonna-
I said exceeding either,
Oh,
so that's what, that was my
Exceeding
language
either,
on there.
okay.
I like
that's good.
Exceeding either 4,000 square feet or 16 foot high, sidewall height.
That sounds good.
Except
to
it
me.
has to be and/or in case they want to do both. In other words, you may be too large and too tall.
But one kicks them out though, right? So it'd be exceeding one.
In other words, if you were coming in for a conditional use for a accessory structure of 4,500 square feet and you wanted the sidewalls to be 18 foot tall, that's where you would need and/or as
Because
the
you're asking for
verbiage.
both. I agree.
And I think
And/or.
that's kind of how it says throughout the rest of the document, as an and
Beautiful. And
or.
Yeah, and/or is what I think it needs to say.
Yeah.
Yep.
We got that? We got that?
Yes.
We're close.
And then the rest of the sentence, right?
Yes, and then exactly the same, so they read exactly the same.
Measured from the highest point of the finished floor area.
Just the numbers change, right? That's,
And then in the procedure, the following articles, Article 7 and Article 8, we just do exactly the same thing. Only
Different
it
numbers.
changes the sizes,
Right.
but
Yeah.
the sentence and the verbiage would all stay the same.
Anything we have to do in definitions?
That's what, I didn't really find anything,
let's look.
in definitions that I thought had to change for that. I mean, the only things, I don't know if we have a definition for sidewall height or
Nothing
accessory
like
structure
that,
would be the
no.
two definitions.
Is there anything in like planned unit development on accessory structure size or
No.
nothing like that? Or not in rural transitional or or lakeside?
Rural transitional
See any then?
Not well defined in letting you do anything in there, really.
Well, it's, you know, accessory building is less than 100% of the area of the largest floor of the principal building. In other words, it has to be smaller than the house.
Yeah, see, that comes from way back in the first part of zoning, when you were allowed any accessory structure that was equal to or smaller than your primary permitted structure.
Well, and
That
a lot of
probably
these
be
are
a
probably
restriction
not gonna
change.
have
I mean,
4,000 square foot houses. I mean, the sheds
No.
will be bigger than the houses in
Yeah,
certain cases.
it's possible.
So
So-
you may have to fix that.
Okay, so do we want to make accessory structure in section 707 to be number 13? Or are we gonna renumber it 1 and then do all the rest of them successively bigger?
Do you want to just,
Just
would it
add
be
it
better
on as
just to add
13?
it at the bottom?
I would
Yeah,
say so.
13.
Just add it as 13.
And then, yeah, 13.
There is a definition for sidewall, but this shouldn't change it at all. It just says the measurement from the highest point of the finished floor at grade to the height of the highest point of wall framing, and that's what our conditional use or our accessory use says right in it, so.
I would say accessory building, subordinate building, the use of which is purely incidental to the main building. Scratch the is less than 100% of the area.
Just scratch the
And,
area.
and just go, let's see, it's purely incidental, blah, blah, blah. Is unattached from the principal building. Let's see. We could have something about, I was trying to think if we.
Yeah,
Let's not
and-
muddy it, I think just scratch that, and maybe something about, and fits in the setbacks of the existing lot or something. I mean, but then maybe you're muddying it up a little bit more than you could.
And this moose covers what you were talking about, the van body and shipping crate. Does it specifically say shipping container? Would we want to?
Somewhere.
It says shipping
that,
crate,
yeah,
is
shipping
that the
crate,
same
it
thing?
says shipping crate
Okay.
container, it's the same
Alright.
thing.
Same thing.
All right. That would kind of cover, I mean,
See, I think that one was that one on Highway 50, the guy had like 6 semi-bodies and.
it's a good living in North Carolina. You get way back there, that's,
That gets into the attachment too, gets into what Brian's been trying to bring up here the last few meetings we haven't got to, is what do you consider attached?
Attached.
well, because we are dealing now with those buildings that are built that have living quarters in them as well. I mean, that's getting more popular and,
But if you build
I
a,
think if you build it, I mean, that's just a house with the attached garage.
Yeah.
Whatever you,
Your
however
garage
you want it
could
to
be
look
like
is up to
60
you.
by 40,
You know.
your house is the first 30 feet.
yeah, but I think, what I heard him say was, you know, if somebody builds a breezeway, now it says it's attached.
Right, yeah.
They don't have to meet any requirements, because it's not an accessory
Well,
building, it's
that's it.
attached.
But if we do what we're doing, the chances of that happening are slim,
Right.
because they're not gonna
Right.
want it.
They're doing it to get around
To
the
get
accessory
around.
structure.
Well, I think that's what he
size.
said,
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
that's what I did that.
Yeah.
So would we need to change the accessory building definition then and take that?
I think we do have to take that 100%,
Yep.
The
is
largest
less
floor
than
of the
100% of
principal
the area, the largest floor of the principal
Yeah,
building.
I
you know,
think
as
that
long as-
needs to be
As long as
strict.
it says it's incidental to the main building, which
Yeah.
means you have to have a house there first.
So just
Right.
strike that, after,
Just
just put a
strike
period
that
there.
phrase where it
After main
says,
I would, I mean, that's my suggestion.
If you just take, because you can take it out, is less than 100% of the area of the largest floor of the principal building. But you can
To-
leave in and is
between-
unattached, or
right,
is unattached
leave-
from the principal.
just strike
by at
it
least
from
10
comma to
feet.
comma.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and take the and out after the
Right,
comma. Yeah,
because
take the and
you
out.
look at most people's garages, they are actually they build them bigger than their houses
Sure.
now. Oh, especially, you know, if they're in a rural area, you know, they want a big machine shed to put their tractors in.
I don't know how to phrase this, but like they want
Campers.
the building, there's gonna put their boat in there, their camper, and their tractor, there's moose snow removal. But we don't want someone, you know, like you guys know where I live, my building is 36 by 48. So I have cars and fire trucks and everything in there, but we don't want someone to open a body shop there, so.
Well, that's a different use.
Right, that's what I'm saying, so the
Yeah, you can't
accessory
open a
structure
business.
means this, but it can't be under a prohibition of a conditional use. Or, you know, it doesn't have to meet the requirements of conditional use, you know what I mean? Because.
That's a separate use, though.
Right, but what happens is the building's already there. So then the guy's like, hey, you know, I paint cars on the weekends and, so that's what I'm saying, what I'm trying to say, like, is, okay, the accessory structure was tied to support the use of the main house. And then if it's something different, it could fall under a conditional use.
Right,
know?
but that's already in the ordinance.
Yeah. You
That's
start a
because
business.
any home-based business is sometimes it's allowed and sometimes it's not. That's a separate conditional use. And that would be listed or prohibited depending on what's allowed in the conditional uses.
We haven't, I don't think we've had a lot of conditional use, at least out in that area for home-based.
Daycares or something.
Yeah, well,
like-
yeah,
like here it's
daycares,
listed as okay for daycares to be in
but
R2.
Okay.
I'll make some
But it's
motion
still
on
a
it.
conditional use. You gotta
You know
ask
that
for
they
it.
just do it.
Yeah, you can't run a business in a
Yeah,
residential
well, I'm
area.
looking at 607 conditional uses, and that's what's, bed and breakfast, campgrounds,
Well,
cemeteries, home-based sales, greenhouses, golf course, hobby farms, horticulture, kennels, manufacturing light, now what would that be considered? Is that,
Light manufacturing.
that wouldn't be like a body shop or?
No, that, would be like you're making
Software or something
producing
like that.
something, or you got your 3D printer and you're making, parts for Amazon or something.
How come the conditional uses are so different between 6, 7, and 8?
Well, because in 8, then you're getting smaller and smaller and more concentrated with people. I would
Okay.
believe that's why the change is there.
Are we done with accessory building, definition?
We,
Oh.
yeah, all we gotta do is just put the language in every
Conditional.
section. So we got it in
Would it-
707 now. Just add it as number 13, accessory structures exceeding 2,400 square feet and/or sidewall height more than 14 feet.
Were we gonna modify accessory building definition?
Yes,
That's what I'm getting
Because that's
at.
where we
Oh,
were
yes.
at last.
We're gonna
Yes.
strike, starting from that comma and
Okay.
then less than 100%, all the way to the next comma and the word and following that
Right.
comma.
So
Right.
what is the benefit, I'm gonna just ask this, what is the benefit of having and is unattached from the building by at least 10 feet? Does it really matter if it's attached, unattached, if it's a,
Because if
if it's a incidental structure? And I keep going back to what this thing with Brian, if somebody puts a breezeway 12 feet long and says, now I'm gonna put a breezeway from my house to a building, I'm gonna build any size building I want because it's attached. That's not an accessory structure, it's just an extension of my house. I had a house, it was 30 by 100.
Yeah.
The first 30 feet was 2-story living space, the back 30 by 60 was a garage, but it was my house. And nobody's gonna tell me how big I was gonna build it, because there was no rules against it, they didn't know what to do about that, but that was in 1997, before everybody started doing that stuff. But what I'm saying is, it sounds like there's issues where people are looking at that and say, oh, well, I'm attaching
Yeah,
it
but
then,
like
and
Donna
it's,
said, that's only because they were trying to circumvent the size of the building in the area that they were at.
okay, so is there a way if we just stop that at the period, put a
Well, I think
period?
we have to define what attached means.
Okay, well, one way or the other.
Because they're gonna have an attached garage, and then they're gonna have an accessory structure. I mean,
Right.
you don't want them to have,
So is there a definition for attached?
I don't know.
But it also comes into like Dan was talking about, well, two, and I know 2 or 3 of them around that, where they build a huge building and the living quarters is in that building, so does that become the primary structure? And they can still build an accessory structure.
Well, I guess that's the other part.
I would say yes, I would
Exactly.
believe that's their house, that's the main,
It's like
you
the
have
one
to have a
right
main
on,
house first.
Sonina
And if it looks
example,
like a
that is
garage, it
one,
looks like a garage.
That green, like James Steel buildings
That's
right
not-
next to the Presbyterian Church, that looks like an accessory structure, that's that guy's house.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, that's what mine was, just, it looked like a big
Yeah, you
shed, like a big machine shed, but in the front there was a lot more windows, because that's where I lived. But that was my house, the whole thing, the
And
30.
that's completely fine.
I think it is, I mean,
But
you
what
can't
about-
tell people how their house should look.
No, but if I was to move that back 60 by 30 by 60, if I had moved that 12 feet away
Then that would have
and
been.
attached it with a
accessory
breezeway,
Yeah.
and attached it with a breezeway,
Then,
is
see,
it still
that-
attached? Is it still my house, the whole thing?
Well, then it's a house and a.
See, I don't, because
Yeah, I
we
see
did,
what you're saying.
we did
That's what
I know.
that, we did that one with, up by the lake where the guy built that 100-foot tunnel. Um,
The doctor.
Yeah, he did that because his variance got denied, and so he dug a
Attached it.
100-foot tunnel and attached it. So
Well, that's-
so it is happening, you know, I get what
Oh,
you're
it'll
saying.
happen, but a lot
I
of people.
think that's kind of extreme,
Well,
don't you?
He won.
Well,
I can't see myself taking another foot on
well, somebody did it though, that's the point, you know?
Well,
So,
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know if it becomes a bigger issue. I'm just bringing it up because it's
Yeah.
just something
I
that.
mean, to me, the question here, in there is the at least 10 feet, but not the being
Yeah.
unattached, it's the 10 feet thing, and I can't explain that, you know, we had some things early on where you wanted things that were unattached to be a certain ways apart because of fire and.
Well,
It's
yeah,
a
for
fire
some higher
prevention.
safety thing.
Fire
But I'm not
safety.
sure
For
how
you to
that
be able to
ended
get
up
a
in
fire
the
truck in
definition,
there.
I can't really say.
Should we
Yes.
delete the
Yes.
10 feet off of there
Yes.
too?
So if it's 8 feet away, is it considered not unattached? I mean, I don't really get that part of it, but.
Or so how should it read? A subordinate building, the use of which is purely incidental to the main building and is unattached from the principal building, and just period, and is unattached from the
Well,
principal
see, I think,
building?
if you just left it, some of these things, this is my thought here. If you just put a period after the main building, period,
Mhm.
and cut the rest of that sentence out, then it's kind of up to interpretation, and I know this, just bear with me, of the zoning administrator, right? To say if that's an accessory building. They come in and say, or he finds out they're building a building and it's, you know, and it's attached by a breezeway or something, they go out and say, well, wait a minute, that's a separate building, you know? You need a permit for that, you need to come in, you know, or whatever, you know, because
I
that's,
see your
Yeah, but
point.
if you wanna find a definition, you can go to International Building Code, you know we don't have adopted International Building Code or, you know, SCBA, and you can look at their definition and it's like, it tells you attached, or, you know, it's not,
That's what I'm guessing.
well, yeah, but if we don't have that adopted,
right, but you don't have
we
to
have to-
adopt it, you can use the definition,
But see, if someone builds
okay,
a house.
yeah, sure, you can use it if the planning,
right, if you're
The
trying
zoning
to
administrator
define
could use it.
how, like, is it attached, I think we just look up and it's like, it's kind of been, like,
Determined.
industry, construction standard evolved, that this is the definition.
What is the definition? I'll look, what would it be called, Musa, under, what was it?
Like SCBA is a standard,
Yes.
building
That's
code
gonna,
for
you're gonna be looking forever, that's 5 gazillion pages.
Never mind.
International Building Code,
You're not gonna
IBC.
just
maybe
look
we're
that
saying the
up.
same thing, I think leave it up
Yeah,
to
I think we need
interpretation,
to just
industry
leave
practice,
that.
or whatever you wanna call it, but there's no wording to trip you up.
As far as, you're saying leave it to him, you know,
To decide, yeah, if it's an accessory building or not.
and
That's
I'm
my-
a little more hesitant than you to give more
Well, I figured it'd be.
But how many
leniency to the
times-
zoning administrator,
How many times has this come up
because-
where someone wanted us to define if their thing was attached, not attached?
Well, it's just, if you build a house with an attached garage, and then you want a large attached garage, let's say, and then you wanna build a large accessory structure, and the zoning administrator goes, oh, no, you've already got an accessory structure, it's attached to the house, but you've got an accessory structure. I mean, it's, you know, you gotta think about 20 years from now when we're not here.
Right.
Yeah, and because
And
this
who's
is a
gonna be here
definition, I think
doing
it
this?
needs a little more, if this was, you know, as far as this in the conditional use or in the accessory use thing, you know, it doesn't say that, and I don't think it needs to say that in there, but I think it does need to say it in the accessory building definition
It's a
itself.
definition of a structure, because, you know.
So do you wanna strike the at least 10 feet or leave it? The original reason it was put in there was for fire safety, so they could get a fire truck to the back of the house.
But now I think it sounds like people are using it as an excuse to have another building, is what I'm getting at.
Right, but, you know, there, if you go out there, they got them little chicken sheds, or, you know, the little flower building at Menards, it's got all the windows, it's sitting 2 feet from the garage somewhere, you know?
Yeah,
So then.
I think when you're telling somebody they can't have a garden shed, you're getting a little
Right.
nitpicky. I mean, if they got 4 of them, I mean, even the city lets you have one. They don't even make you have a building permit to, you know, get one of those prefab things and set it next to your house. You can have those in mobile home parks.
Mm.
What did we decide on the attached, unattached, and do we wanna specify that, or do we not wanna specify?
That's, I guess that's where we're still at.
I
Where
would
we're
say and is unattached should be on there.
So,
I think it
so
should be
like
on
it.
there.
I
So
think it
Ten
should be on
feet,
there.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
flexible on, because
Yeah.
I'm
So-
not sure.
I would say,
So
because
what's-
otherwise
what's
you're
the-
gonna-
what's the
he's gonna-
reason if somebody, you know, say they have their house is here and then they have a breezeway and then another structure here, then that's not an accessory structure then? That's how I would read
That's
it.
the way I read it.
If it's attached, and we are seeing some of that, so if I have my house and, you know, another, you know, however big a building that's attached by a breezeway, then that would not be an accessory structure.
Right. That's what I'm.
Or if we said something that is attached or unattached, then that would cover both of them. I'm, you know, just throwing stuff
Right,
out
but
here.
then you're having Nazi Hitler zoning administrator coming up to somebody and saying, hey, you got a 3-car attached garage, you don't need
Well, I mean,
another accessory
if,
structure.
if,
Because he could say that's your accessory structure now. You know what
Well,
I'm saying?
well, I mean, if somebody, what, the point of us, I think, doing this is to allow more flexibility
Right.
out there. And so if somebody has the room to build another one of them,
Yeah.
we want them to be able to build that.
Exactly.
I guess with,
So here's the definition
Yeah.
from cable, which is 1 and 2 family dwelling codes. Attached structure, for example, decks or stairways are attached structures when they are connected to another structure. A garage may be attached to another structure by sharing a wall or a breezeway. Structure not connected by individual beams or similar non-component construction. So it's, you
You're
know.
saying you can't tie a 2x4 through on the fascia board? and call
Yeah,
it
there's
attached.
a 2x4 and a gutter goes across, that doesn't make it an attached building.
And I
It's
mean,
gotta have-
just
it's gotta
because
have a
somebody
structural attachment
attaches a
of a breezeway or
breezeway to
something.
their garage doesn't mean their beams,
Whatever attaches them
you
needs
know,
to be structural as
So
well.
we could strike the 10
trying
feet
to,
then.
to dodge the
I
law.
think
leave the
can tell you
unattached,
from
yeah,
experience,
strike the 10 feet.
My father-in-law attached a breezeway because he doesn't wanna have to go out in the snow and the ice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm not against breezeways, and I'm not against,
Yeah.
you know,
So I mean, it's not
But-
like every time somebody adds a breezeway to their house, it's, they're doing it
No.
to dodge the ordinance.
no, but, I mean, we've had
Well,
a
we
couple
just- we-
instances,
yeah.
it sounds like they're where
Yeah.
people are trying
if there's an in, if somebody can grab an insert.
But I like
take
what
them out.
Moose says, you know, if you use a standard code of some sort.
Well, you don't have to use the code, you can just plagiarize the definition.
Well, industry accepted, you know,
Standard,
a
right.
definition of attached, you know,
What-
whatever. So,
What about something like, and is structurally unattached from the principal building? Would that clear that up?
no, yeah. Now, if there's a screw on each end of the breezeway attaching it, they're gonna say it's.
Well, is that structure?
No, right, I know structurally, yeah.
I don't
structurally.
know.
I don't know, I was trying to think of something too.
I think if you just leave it at unattached, you can technically use the virgin for what is or isn't attached.
I
Okay,
like that,
I can
you
do
know.
that.
Then take out the 10 feet.
Take out the 10
I
feet, we're
think
gonna
at
take
least
out.
10 feet.
And is unattached from the principal building, period, and get rid of at least 10 feet?
Yeah.
So, is unattached from the principal building, period.
Yeah,
Yeah, then that ties back to the size and height.
right.
And other than that, who cares, you know?
I like it.
Hush.
It's painstaking getting there. You do get there.
Do we need to address accessory use structure definition? That's pretty much the same, isn't it? Most of those structures,
Yeah, see, that doesn't have any of that other stuff in it.
No.
I don't see anything in there that would be obvious. but
That
it's
was
just
put
trying
in
to
there
get this
because they
stuff
wanted to
out.
get rid of the shipping crates and saying that they're an accessory structure. That's why they did that.
Or even in Yankton, you have chicken, you know?
One of these has, you can have, yeah, R1, you can have an accessory ag structure, conditional use.
That was, number 6, I think, Article 6, I think. had it.
Yeah. Yeah, R1 was ag structure.
Are there any other
There's not
terms that
really
we
any
need
other
to-
words or phrases in
Sure,
there that
Brian will
have a definition, I think. If we looked at accessory structures and we looked at sidewall height,
Muddy it up.
did, just so you know, Dennis, they did print out a thing for us of all the accessory use variances that in the last, what, maybe several years?
10 years, I think, wasn't it?
And that's kind of how they came with these doubling the numbers. It would have encompassed probably 90% of the things people asked for. you
It
know,
seemed like,
to move to those, so.
it seemed like there was a lot, there wasn't very many variances up until probably the last 5 years, and then it's doubled each year, and just this last year, five a meeting sometimes of the same thing over and over again.
I don't remember doing big ones when we were on
Yeah.
there. It was mostly small, half-acre stuff, the over 800.
Yeah, there was a lot of them that were just barely over that got, well, and there wasn't a lot, but several denied, and then, they got up to 300% plus, and then they were getting approved, and so.
But then again, if it's an area where he's got a 10-acre lot,
Sure.
and I remember one of them, it was like way back in the trees, nobody could actually see it,
Yeah.
Mm.
So,
All right.
So do we have all those written up for 6, 7, and 5, or 6, 7, and 8 then?
okay, we just gotta change it, we didn't change it very far. Well, I didn't write it in my book
And there's no accessory structure for manufactured park, I'm sure.
No, I didn't see.
Yeah, I don't think there is in the others. Size,
It's-
I suppose we should write this up in a,
Yeah, so.
so
now-
that we can discuss it at a regular meeting
And then just
vote
put it-
on moving it to the
For the
county.
commission.
Well, yeah, why don't we just put that on the agenda
If
for
we
next
can-
planning and zoning meeting?
Right, or it can be done under the administrative functions.
We can just, but we should
Identify
write
as
out,
one of- yeah.
write
We
out
should-
exactly what we all said and what we want changed and.
if we kind of wrote this out, whether will volunteer to do it, I hope, and then, could you take, whether it's, somebody secretarial in the building or something, and have them write it up in a form that everybody has a copy of it at the next meeting, and we could actually have a vote on it
Yeah,
Mhm.
if we had it written up. I mean, if I had to, I'd,
So I think it would be, it'd go to the board would vote on it to approve it, and then after that, this board would have a hearing, correct?
it would, but I think we have to have it written up for everybody on this board to have it
Yeah.
typed in front of
Sure.
them.
Yeah, we could do
Because,
that.
we've had a few changes,
Then
and
it's a
then we look at it
format.
afterwards and say, what in the heck were we thinking?
Well, it gives us another chance to look at it.
Yeah, so we can look at it and make sure that this is what we want, and maybe
Yeah.
somebody that's not here has a,
Okay.
a concern or an idea that we didn't think of,
Yeah.
Yep.
Sounds like a plan.
so are you volunteering to type that up and email it
If
to
the
us?
chairman won't do it, I'll do it. I don't know if I'll type it, but
Well,
I'll
good.
write it. I'll write it.
Congratulations.
Maybe Megan will type it. We'll see, maybe I can get her typed up on the iPad, I don't.
Well,
That's hard typing it on
The problem is I can't do stuff, I don't know if I can do stuff like that definition
Oh,
thing, you need to
okay,
be able to
all
strike
right.
through. You know
All
what I
right.
mean, you need to be able to do things that I may not be able
I'll
to do.
strike
All right, that's no problem, I can do it.
Yeah.
But do I have everybody's email address? Could you just write it on my
I
tablet?
think it's posted on the website now, everybody's.
I'll accept mine.
You don't have one?
I didn't know I asked them not to put my email address on the
Well,
website.
how am I supposed to email?
Ask me. My phone number's on there, so call me.
I don't have a computer anymore.
But I can't
so don't have that, so-
email you if you don't,
I'll give it to you.
okay,
I just didn't want it on the website.
okay.
I didn't really want my phone number on the website.
Yeah, I didn't really want my address on there just because I'm a teacher.
We, well, probably would
But
be
anyway.
better.
Blackbook will show where you live.
You know, most of the really ornery ones, they're not smart enough to be good at that.
Well, they are now.
If you want, like,
Thanks for that.
we should probably, we'll have one of the staff email us, because I know this is only
Oh, right.
advisory board, but if it goes out to a quorum, we'll just like
Oh.
avoid that. So
Okay.
if we have
Okay.
somebody from the office, email it to all of us, then we avoid that. And if it gets sent to you, don't reply all.
Right.
So,
They have the ability to hide everybody.
Yeah, you can blind carbon
Blind
copy,
copy.
Yeah.
Push hide.
blind carbon copy it.
Yeah, that's kind of a whole new thing on forum stuff on the internet, I'm not sure.
Oh.
it's, nobody really knows everything to it, but
some attorney called.
Okay, thank you.
Public forum.
Well, like a phone call, I guess a phone call can count as that, and emails,
Sure.
all of that. So, alrighty.
What else? Want to change the expiration of variances in CUP side?
I don't think I would mess with anything that's gonna
Wasn't
probably
on
be a
the
lawsuit.
Right, but there's also, we publicly said we're gonna get together, we're gonna talk about this.
I mean, we could work on other stuff on the ordinance, because we said we were just working
Do
on
we,
the
do we
ordinance.
wanna
but-
call
That's what
her,
I'm saying.
call her quit, or should we identify, maybe we should identify a few sections we can all do our research for the next meeting, and like, maybe not discuss them, but, you know, why I was going through, you know, this area,
Well,
something
but
like
there's
that.
an issue like expiration of, I'll just use this again as an example, and we've all can come to a consensus on it. What's the issue with discussing it? And
Well, a week
We
ago, I
already
would've
did
said that was
We did
fine.
that on the last meeting.
But after our last
I'm
meeting,
looking at language is what I'm
there's
getting
a
at.
significant
It starts
chance
with-
there's gonna be a lawsuit, and that section will be what will be referenced in the lawsuit. So I don't think you wanna make a change.
We have to wait for a lawsuit. Can't we make a change going forward from here?
I would say we can, but I would say I don't think it's a good idea to go to court and say, in the middle of this lawsuit, we changed the section that's germane to the argument.
Yeah, but even when it goes to court, it goes to what the standard of precedent was at the date that the lawsuit was
It
filed.
certainly does.
After that, it's,
And
hey,
I'm saying, what about the guy coming in next week and wants to do something? What, he doesn't have, we want to be clear for everybody going forward. So if it's been muddy from here back, let's clear it up from here forward. That's all.
yeah, because it becomes like, if that gets enacted, then it's effective 1
Yeah.
August or 1 July or whatever it is. Because then that's the definition point of when, you know, something was changed.
All I'm saying is to believe that the court doesn't see that you're changing the ordinance based on the fact that you made an argument that this is what the ordinance said and
And
now
if
you're
you
changing
do
it.
that, then you can't ever change anything, because what if someone sued?
Well, you can change it. All you gotta do is wait a little bit. When you have, if you didn't have an obvious lawsuit hanging out there, it would be different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't even wanna discuss
Well,
it.
No,
What-
no,
maybe-
I think we spent enough time on
Yeah.
the last meeting.
What, I
Let's
think
let the
what
county deal
would
with
be the best is, while you guys are doing your research, going through, find places that you think need to be cleared up, and just email them to the chairman if you want to talk about a specific section or article, and we'll go from there. I guess we'll have when is the next, are we gonna get together again? Are we gonna have the regular meeting?
So I guess what I'm getting at, as long as we're here, so, all right, that issue doesn't sound like everybody wants to talk about.
But there's other stuff you can certainly, you know,
Right, I can't believe there's nothing else that we could discuss tonight.
section
Well,
207.
we can't talk about anything tonight because it wasn't
You
on
know-
it, it wasn't advertised. We didn't notice it.
We could,
Administrative discussion would take.
is there anything, what about like,
Discussing ordinance.
say like Article, 4 or something? Maybe we could have something in there about where the official zoning ordinance should be as well? Because I don't know it talks about the zoning map, but, you know, that's maybe something we could look
Mine
at as
got kind of
well.
all messed up with that argument over the zoning map and saying the zoning map was, you know.
So what's your suggestion, what's your thoughts?
I'm just saying, people, read through this and see if it makes sense to you, and if you have a better suggestion. Kind of one of the things that it talks about is the official zoning map, but is this the map? Or is that the map, and where should it be? Where should the official copy, because we were at a point where the online was different than the book upstairs, which was different than the register of deeds and the auditor. So and I know this would never happen, but the only official version was a working copy, and what happens if a page fell out?
So
Right.
Dan, one of the things I talked to Joe about once is, one of the things we make this, updating this, the easy way to do it. Even if you had to pay a company to scan all this in Adobe Pro and convert it, every single page to Microsoft Word.
We have that right now.
So anyway, all the front stuff too, you know, like
Yeah, it is
1995,
all
of
it
this,
is.
right? It gets converted to Microsoft Word, then when you go through, you can change it, highlight it, or strike through, you know, and then you date it. And that's how we update process procedures, lockout, tagout, safety manual, whatever, right? And then you can go
Okay.
through, and then it's, you don't have to retype all, John doesn't have to go get a keyboard for his iPad, because he can just,
Yeah, but see, you don't wanna be able to change it that
No,
easily,
but
and
it
all of
can-
a
it
sudden
can only
someone's
be- yeah, but-
changed it,
no,
and I'm
no.
looking at my old book at home from
Right,
this
what I'm
started,
saying
and I'm
is
going in
there's
here
a-
and going, what the heck?
there's
This
an
is- there's
official
big
thing, there's
section
an
missing.
original the original is read-only, sealed out, and then.
Password
okay,
protected.
2019 updates and revisions.
Right.
This is read-only, this is now, and as soon as that is signed off by like
That's
the county
just it.
commission, then this becomes read-only, but you still have, if you're trying to, you know, new technologies come
Right.
in, or like 5G towers, or how do we add
I
that
think
in?
things were moved.
Then we don't have to because when you do that in like Microsoft Word, then all the page numbers change, and then all this is, but if you did that, then as you add 5G or whatever these new, something else comes in, you can fit it in and it automatically changes everything, then you sign this as read-only, 2020 version, 2025 version. And then it's not open to the whole public, you know, it's like the
Yeah.
zoning administrator would, it would be closed, and then the zoning administrator has
Right.
2020, or this is working in progress, changes or revisions, and
Well, I
Yeah.
do think it would be nice if a copy of the ordinance was always kept in the auditor's office and in the zoning office, so that we don't just have one official copy in one place, so that if there's some kind of a problem, we have more than one copy on file, whether it's digital or whether it's a physical paper, I don't care. But we should have an official copy of the zoning ordinance in more than one place,
yes.
and we don't.
But it
Well, this
should
day and
be
age,
like
it
this
should be
dated.
digital,
Yeah.
it should be
I don't-
on our county website, there should be a,
Yeah, it is. And I think there's a
That-
state law now from our Representative Schwak that the most up-to-date version has to be on the website. That's, you know, a new state law, which is good, a good thing.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not?
Yeah,
But the zoning map, I don't think that was getting updated correctly. In other
No.
words, every time we're doing a rezone or something here,
It didn't always.
it
get
should have
caught
gone
up in
onto
this.
the map. It should have been
Right.
colored in on the map, and I don't think that was happening. You know,
Can that be done online too?
I think as I mean, when you guys probably did it, you took out a crayon and colored it.
Stick, we had to put it in the stick.
I didn't mean that in a bad way, but nowadays with technology, when you do it,
Candle that would be.
it should be
We're using
automatically
light.
done, and when we look more at this, hopefully this software we're gonna discuss, it could be the potential when it's rezoned, it just is automatically done, and so the version that's online is always up to date, and that's really what we
And it should
want.
be as easy as a point and a click and done, you know?
You hope so.
I don't even know
Even
what
in
year
Beacon,
it went
there's a,
online.
there's a layer
I
in
can't
Beacon.
say that.
You can turn on the layer of current zoning, and then the county people have the authorization, you know,
Right.
Yep,
like it's determined polygon where the zoning is.
Hmm.
And then if you pay for that, then it's like we look at this like, man, where's that house that's out, like, oh yeah, that's that place right at the curve it. You know, and you can look at the map and it says, this is what it is. When it
Right.
comes out and we do the lot, it turns pink, it's like, that's what that is right now.
But you're right, I think it needs to be in more than one location.
I think so, because when the
Yeah.
question came forward of
secure.
where is the
Yeah,
official
the
zoning
official
ordinance,
disappears. Yeah, and it
It's
says,
we
it
got
says
it
right in there, you know,
Incomplete.
And then when you have the webpage,
And the whole
now you
map
say
that's
the
not
current,
correct.
the most,
Yep.
most
And
current
you can say
official
it's
zoning
legal,
ordinance
but
is
we
two
don't want that. You
nineteen,
can't just have
four,
people
or 617, that's the
changing it
number,
willy-nilly.
that's.
Yeah,
what
right.
that, you
This
know,
version,
that is-
system.
revision, yeah.
we'll probably, to be safe, because, you know, look what happened to Hutchinson with the cyber attack, they lost a lot of stuff, so we'd have to have
Hard
online, and then maybe a hard copy in the auditor's office, the zoning office, and maybe even the register of deeds filed.
Well, the county's got, servers that are backing up, I would hope.
No, we're good in that regard, but nobody's ever 100% safe. I mean, big, huge banks get hacked, what was it,
What's the guy with the,
Alcoa, or where was it, the Zappa
has the little rock on it?
got, I
What's
mean,
that one?
it depends on.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's,
Equifax.
you know, it's
Yeah.
possible.
It's like I remember.
It wouldn't hurt to have a hard copy of it.
No, it
Yeah.
wouldn't, exactly.
So would this board want to try, because right now there's nothing that says that. Is there something we would want to add that says,
Well,
that
if
referring to
we're
the ordinance, not the map?
if we're in, I would almost, you know, what does the map mean to people? Map, to me, means the map and not
The
necessarily
map is the map.
this
The
book.
map changes without a public meeting, whatever. It changes based on something that has happened, you know, at the
That
county
had to
and
be
gone through.
rezoned or whatever.
But the ordinance change is a big change, and you wouldn't think it would change that much, but the ordinance in its current form should be spelled out where that is stored, so that, because now if you go online and say, well, where's the ordinance stored? It doesn't say where there's an ordinance.
Well, and maybe what is the third paragraph? It says, no changes of any nature shall be made in the official zoning map, you know, or ordinance, I mean, because
To the map.
I don't know, you shouldn't change the ordinance without following the conformity that's in here.
Right, but Article
There's-
4 is about the map.
Well-
Stuff in the
We're gonna
beginning, I
add
think,
the
Yeah.
that references the ordinance.
Well,
in the ordinance.
I don't know, I guess this is a discussion, what do we,
Do you have a
Jurisdiction.
a separate article about.
I don't think there's a separate article about the ordinance
So
itself
we
on
could-
the map.
Article one
Say
jurisdiction
official
talks
map,
about
add
provisions of the
ordinance.
ordinance declared to be standards and jurisdiction of the ordinance, and this ordinance shall be known as, and called the official zoning ordinance of Yankton County. That would be the place if you're gonna put something about where the ordinance is
official,
officially
you know,
located.
3 official copies should be, you know, register deeds, auditor, planning, and zoning, as well as post the most current, maybe we should have it in here too, the
Article
most,
1.
Article
the
one,
most
page 34.
important, the most current version shall be posted on the county's website
Right.
in
and
accordance
then
with
there was
state
a
law.
revision, whether it was a revision in January of 19 or October of 19, the latest date is the most current.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Then you
Yeah.
don't have, and if you did it in the Microsoft Word thing again, you don't have to go back and correlate
Yeah.
300 pages.
Yep.
Because it does it by itself.
Yeah. Yeah, we had District 3 scan that and then turn that into a Microsoft. So it's available, and I think that's the way to do it when you
Right.
do that change.
So then when in the old stuff, you make the old stuff read-only, and then the control of who has access to change the official.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah.
So where would you add that language? Under general, or would you put a separate section for it? Or- General reads, the ordinance shall be known and shall be cited and referred to as the official zoning ordinance of Yankton County, South Dakota. The same effect as
It's
if the
Article
full
1.
title were stated, and then it could say something.
Page 34.
With the location of the
Yeah, where
official copy?
copies, copies need to reside wherever they're gonna reside in a certain office, and then, it's up to you if it needs to say something pursuant to the website.
I guess I don't, if it's South Dakota law to do that, I'm wondering if we shouldn't cite it at that point.
I just think it would be nice if,
Article
through
1.
this whole thing that went on, if somebody could've went to Article 1 and it would've said,
Right.
this is
Part
the
of it
ordinance, and here's where the
Part
copy,
of
the
it is,
current copy
if
is
you read
located.
the first half of the zoning ordinance, there was a discussion about this, or you can't find where it was at. And then again, if it's readable only in Microsoft Word, you can do word search and find, oh yeah, it says who starts or shows up at page 28 or whatever it is.
Cause I know it does, I've got 5 copies or 4 copies of various stages and changes, and I didn't know that the website was not current, because there's not that many changes that you're just gonna spot it.
No,
right
you
away.
don't spot them that,
I think the change was just the recourse for planning commission, zoning administrator to go to the planning commissioner or go to the, board of adjustment.
Well,
That was,
there was
and there was
differences in
Some of the wording was totally like, what the heck?
There was difference in how many, in the appeals process, on how many days before you appealed, because that had been changed, and so there was a bunch of changes, I don't know what year, if they were 2009 changes or
definition.
something.
Right, they didn't track through the chapters.
Right, and I don't know when the ordinance got put online, it got put online probably and not changed when the next changes came,
oh, shoot.
because I don't remember it being online at all,
Don't use the one that's in this drawer from '03. It's not even close.
For reference only, right on the front.
Well, hopefully there's some good changes since '03, so.
All right, so do we wanna add to section 101?
Article 1 on page 34.
what the wording would say.
Right.
Well, something to the official copy of the
Official copy
zoning
shall
ordinance
be
shall be in, or something to that effect, I don't know.
Okay, just
Copies shall be
Copy.
located.
the Yankton County zoning ordinance, or do we just wanna write zoning ordinance?
The official zoning ordinance of Yankton County is how they refer to it.
Copy of that. Official zoning ordinance.
Is there any secure areas of this building that if,
We're on camera.
well, I mean, but is there a place where certain, I asked about fireproof cabinets at last.
There are some in some of the departments.
When I say
yeah.
secure, I don't mean just, secret location.
Yeah,
but I mean,
there are areas where, with fireproof.
Okay.
And I think the register of deeds would probably be a good, location for that, because they store records there, a lot of them. And, if the more places you have them, the better off, if something happens to,
We've got 'em
fires
off-
in
we've
one
got 'em
area and not
off-site.
the
We've
other.
got a spot off-site
yeah.
that they have them too, and then they have a place up at the courthouse, which also is a building that we maintain, and there's storage up there that's secure. There's a secure vault
So
up there on second floor up on,
Mhm.
if we're storing, say we're storing one that, we had talked about the auditor, the zoning department, and whether or not the register of deeds, would one of those end up storing it off-site?
I don't,
Don't
I
really
don't know
know.
where we are.
That's
we
what I
are
didn't
right
know if
now with
somebody-
that. I mean, it's been years since I talked about it with the auditor, I don't.
I didn't know if somebody's physically storing any of their stuff off-site that we know
You know,
of.
I
things
think,
can
and,
change.
and we, if we had a digital copy, that would be stored on our cloud and our backed up servers. So,
You don't worry
one
about
of those
fires,
four copies,
court records.
you would hope would, if there's a fire, then we have the
Survive.
digital copy. If there's some type of, hacking and we lose a digital copy, then we have the hard copy. I think one of those four would survive in that instance.
So what do we want this to say? Copies of the official zoning ordinance of Yankton County shall be,
The official copy of the official zoning ordinance of Yankton County shall be shall be located in the Yankton County Register of Deeds Office, the Yankton County Auditor's Office, and the Yankton County Zoning Office. How's that?
I gotta play devil's advocate here. What would happen if one was different than the other?
That's where it comes
I'm
back to the most recent date is the
Yeah.
actual, so you just
Yeah.
signed it, right? It's whatever, the serial number is like the date it was in effect.
I'm just saying hypothetic.
Well, we talk about
who-
hard
Who
copies
knows, yeah,
in
if,
these places?
yeah, if,
I would say so,
Well, I mean,
yes.
that's what
On
I'm
the
saying.
webpage,
Paper
you
copy.
did, just on the webpage, the updated, most recent revision.
It's on the
update
website.
Is serial number, 2019-617 Yankton County zoning.
Right.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, because people, pages can go missing and stuff.
Because I think there was a copy in the register deeds, and that was also the 2003
Yeah.
copy.
It was
In
never-
today's world, though, everybody's gonna try to look it up on our webpage
Yeah.
before they come to
Well, it
dig
wasn't-
through the library.
Yeah, I mean, we can keep a copy, but I don't think,
The
I think the
Yankton
official copy should be on our website.
Yeah,
The most updated version that should be the official copy on the website. And it should be, protected, you should have an administrative, a password protection, and like every other official document that you don't want somebody to tamper with, you're not just gonna leave it on a desk somewhere, or, I mean, at this, with the technology we have nowadays, you can have hard copy for people to look at, but if they wanna come in and,
I'm just worried about,
Yeah, but
hackers are pretty good. If somebody was able to go in and change one word and you'd never know it, and if it can, you know how some of these interpretations come down to one word.
Right.
And if you're, this was online and this was in the vault, which is precedent?
Well,
Because
we've got,
well, how do they do codified law in the state? in the state? How do they do it? I mean, you can go online and record a law, but is the paper copy the end all be all?
I
or-
would imagine.
All right.
I know the official, the handwritten
Your bank account could be
constitution, that's
online
the
too.
first.
If there's a
yeah.
number off, you say,
I don't know, and I hope,
If
I
they
hope we
change
never
all
read
three
about it.
hard copies, and they change the website, and they change the cloud, then they're good, and I give up.
Well, that's the trick.
It's like, you know, if they change something, I mean, you know, you're gonna know it, you're gonna go out, we're all gonna have a book, we're gonna go back and we're gonna look and say, wait a minute, this has been changed, you know, I mean, it's not
Yeah,
gonna
I
happen.
think we could just have,
I think we're over.
maybe if, yeah, I think you're right. I think the official copies, we could have one in the auditor's register,
Do what we can
disease
do,
and
and we
zoning
can't do
office,
anymore.
and then post it on the
But
county's website.
also, I think this is my opinion,
Mhm.
all right. The official copy of the official zoning ordinance of Yankton County shall be located in the Yankton County Register of Deeds office, the Yankton County Auditor's office, and the Yankton County Zoning office. End of that sentence. And then say the Yankton County zoning ordinance shall be available to the public online. Because if for some reason they don't get it updated online and some major change happens, they can say, it wasn't updated online on, midnight of Tuesday, December 2nd.
Yeah.
You know
Okay.
what I
Well,
mean?
there should be,
I mean, we will update it in a timely manner.
well, that's what it comes down to, right? So if you vote on it, if the county commission votes on the change.
Yeah, that moment, they're not gonna go down there and they're not
Right.
gonna
Well,
change
Well,
it.
that's right, there has to
at
be,
that moment.
there is a, should,
How government documents usually work, it says date of effect.
Yeah, it gives you a month or
Right,
something.
but that's why I'm saying the official copy,
And
the
that's-
hard copies should be in the offices.
Yeah,
And as you
I
said,
can
the
agree with
latest
that.
version is the version that is the law.
well, there should be something in ordinance somewhere that says within a certain amount of time, it will be posted on the website. 2 weeks, a month, reasonable amount of time, from the date of
In a-
enactment of the
in a-
change.
Ordinance enacted in
reasonable-
30 June.
I don't think-
The date of
I don't think you
effectiveness
need
is
to put
1
a
August.
certain number of days
Yeah,
on it.
with the new South Dakota codified law, I think that is a requirement. We could say something like, the zoning ordinance will be posted online in accordance with South Dakota codified law, whatever that is. Would that?
Just reference that law, you can say, will be posted in accordance
Yeah,
with
sure.
codified law, whatever.
Yeah.
Sure, we don't need to
Because-
reinvent the wheel if it's already out.
Yeah, and I think that just passed this year.
Okay.
I'll have to message Ryan and see
Okay.
what that was. And then as long as we're in compliance with that. I don't know how long the grace period is, because I know if something goes through, there's time to refer it to a vote, and if it goes to vote and, passes, then there's even a longer time, so it could be quite a while.
It won't go into effect the next day, you'll have
Yeah.
time to
You
change.
just gotta define, here's
Yeah.
the effective date.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
how every
Yeah.
official government thing is, effective X.
So what offices are we gonna locate them in? We're gonna locate them in the zoning office and the auditor's office and the registrar's
Register of
office?
Deeds. Isn't that acceptable? Is
Does
acceptable
does that
to
sound
everyone?
good with everybody?
That's fine.
Yeah,
They all-
so that once it
they all
passes,
have a
if there are any
say.
changes and
Mm.
it passes through you,
Mm.
then those pages would be updated in those offices.
Yeah, because we had a pretty, like I said, we had a pretty big scare with just one book being the official copy. It's
Yeah,
all we
agree.
had, and if, something would have happened to that, where would we have been? I mean, it would,
So you're just gonna say
Article
reference
1,
copy
section
online?
101. Okay, guys, I thought I was done with paperwork in school.
There we go, no, you're it.
We're just gonna say reference online, on website, just reference?
I can be available to the public online is how I wrote it. I
And-
mean, you can change it if you want.
and I'd say in accordance with South Dakota codified law, and then you
In
could should,
accordance, yeah, and I don't know what it is.
I don't know what it is offhand either.
With South Dakota codified law number blah, blah, blah.
So it just says in accordance with South Dakota codified law, and we'll find out what that is.
Yeah, is that okay?
The official zoning ordinance of Yankton County will be posted on the Yankton County website, is that kind of what we're saying?
Yeah.
How are we wording that?
Yeah.
Public record,
Online.
that'd be really accessible.
In the,
Either, yeah.
do we need this on the Yankton County website?
Language to that
On
effect.
the Yankton website.
Okay, I'll go.
Okay,
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Or anybody, we have public
Oh,
comments.
public comment was on.
That was at 7:30.
We got two publics out.
Oh, go.
I guess I'd have one thing, when we do this agenda, we should probably, have administrative, discussion accessory bill, and then, just something like, discussion of zoning ordinance, in general, so if we kind of, there were things we wanted to talk about, and we were like, well, we can't because of this, maybe make it a little more general in
Yep.
that.
Generic.
term.
Yep.
Generic, yeah. Right. I'm
So
sorry.
I think we need to make sure that Brian puts on every agenda, every month from now on, that we're gonna discuss the county zoning ordinance, whether we do or not.
Yeah, it should
If
just
we
be
have
on
time
there.
and we just put it on the agenda, and if there's,
Covered base.
yeah, something we wanna discuss, we can discuss it, it doesn't have to be
Yeah,
specific.
and it lets people know that we're having these discussions, and so they can come in and give us their input if they'd like to. Right.
Good idea. Continuous improvement.
So alcohol is an unofficial adjournment.
Well, I made a motion to adjourn. Only one second.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.